Hey, Don.
Comments of a personal nature? What did you say?
Do we have the timer? We're just making sure someone has it. Good. Thank you. He's ready now, whenever you are. He has turned the light on. He has. Where did this go? This is who's coming to pick up. Yes. There we go. But again, sometime during correspondence, you ask if you do not have to read anything. Do you want to? I think I'm supposed to. Okay. It's up to you. You do not have to. Yeah, we'll do it the last. After Monarchs. Pardon? We can leave the list in case more people come. Then we'll get the list. I'll try that way. I'm sorry. I'm going to make a sound. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the Morgantown City Council regular meeting. We're in Mon County Commission Chambers, 243 High Street. It is Tuesday, October 4th, 2022, and it's just shy of 7:15. If the clerk would please call the roll.
Joe Buchanan,
Present.
Bill Koicki,
Here.
Lucia Vega,
Here.
Deputy Mayor Trumbull,
Here.
Dave Archberger,
Here.
Brian Butcher,
Here.
Mayor Celine.
Here. And we stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the minutes. We're looking at the September 20th, 2022 special meeting minutes, September 20th, 2022 regular meeting minutes, September 27th, 2022 Committee of the Whole meeting minutes. And if there are no additions or corrections, they will stand as approved. Is that good?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Correspondence. So we're going to start off with the Morgantown Youth Council update. Are there some students here from Morgantown High?
Hi, I'm Aaron Beatty. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm president of Morgantown High School Sexuality and Gender Acceptance Club. And
Oh, pardon,
Just speak up.
but can you hear them?
yes,
Yes.
Okay, and I will speak up more. Thank you.
and co-editor-in-chief of the Red and Blue Review.
Hi, my name is Ashley Morgan. I'm Vice President and co-founder of the NHS Student Health and Safety Club. I'm also a historian of the Women Initiative Club, and I'm also a member of the City Council on Agents for 3 years.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Colin Street. I'm president of Mountaineer Area Robotics, Morgantown High School's Green Initiative Club, Morgantown High School's Youth in Government, and the first Boys Nation representative from Morgantown High School.
So we wanted to start off with homecoming at Wilmington High School. I really want to emphasize that this is going to be our first normal homecoming since COVID-19. We also are going to have our first co-queens of the homecoming court this year, stated right here. Homecoming will be held at the school this year instead of at the pavilion at Milan Park, showing that we really bounced back since COVID restrictions have been lifted. And our theme this year is going to be around the world.
Morgantown High School's version of a GSA, or Gay Straight Alliance, is the Sexuality and Gender Acceptance Club. This is a place for LGBTQ+ students and their allies to gather, and it works as a safe space for students to just meet other LGBTQ+ teens and people friendly towards them, so that they can socialize and make friends outside of their usual classes and grade levels. But we also do a lot of activism work inside of the schools. If students have an issue, like if they're being harassed or bullied, they can come to us and we can give them support, and help them address the right administrators at the school. And we also do a lot of fundraising, and the money goes towards buying gender-affirming care items for transgender youth in West Virginia. Some of these fundraisers include buying our All Belong Here stickers, which might soon be available at River Fair Trade. We also like to work very closely with WVU's LGBTQ+ Center and the LGBTQ+ dorms at WVU, and this includes having guest presenters from the center and floors so that more students are aware of the resources that are available to them still as high school students, but also if they're interested in going to WVU. And through our connection with the WVU LGBT Center, I, along with our Vice President, Lonnie Medley, were able to attend the Appalachian Queer Youth Summit with the ACLU, which provides a lot more resources with other, LGBTQ+ students and gay straight alliances within the state. And, of course, being able to form bonds that last a lifetime, and we get like a lot of trainings like, a know your rights and how to advocate for yourself.
So Mountaineer Area Robotics, also called MARS, is a 501c3 nonprofit based out of here in Morgantown. While we work throughout 5 counties, about 82% of our team are students from Morgantown High School, so the school has a major impact on the operations and the way the team works. So the goal of MARS is to spread STEM education to youth in North Central West Virginia. How do we break that down is we focus on 3 main demographics: our high school students, our middle school students, and our elementary school students. With our high school students, you can see right here, we focus on building these 125-pound robots in a matter of 6 weeks. So it's kind of a speed and endurance competition to build these robots, and we bring them throughout the country, competing in places like Albany, New York, and Texas to kind of demonstrate our robotics prowess. Doing this in such a manner teaches our high school students the basics in mechanical design, hands-on mechanical training using heavy machinery like a lathe or a mill, hands-on electrical experience and wiring, programming experience like Java and LabVIEW, and marketing experience as well. MARS is a 501c3 nonprofit, like I said, and runs on $82,000 annually. So all of that money is fully fundraised through grants and community partnerships by our students and outreach and public relations, which is what the 3 of us are in. We focus on first LEGO League with our middle school and elementary school students. So you can see it's a much smaller scale robot, but with Legos, and it allows the programming and mechanical aspects to be kind of brought down to the level of understandability for these middle school and elementary school students. It teaches the basics in Scratch, which is block programming, which directly corresponds to the upper level programming we do at MARS. So it creates a great feeder program from middle school robotics to high school robotics, keeping students engaged as they progress through the programs.
We also want to take a focus on the Student Health and Safety Club that my friend Darby and I run. That is me, that is our president and other co-founder, Darby Schaub. So SHS works through Planned Parenthood, both South Atlantic right here, to provide health and safety resources and community connections to all of our students at the school. And some of those connections and resources include anti-contraceptives such as condoms and free birth control. And we also want to create a safer environment for our students and promote menstrual equity by providing free access to period products and also hosting menstrual equity presentations to our students to come and learn what it means to be an ally to those who menstruate. And that is hosted by our partners at Planned Parenthood, both South Atlantic, one of our partners, and our representative is Ixia Vega over here. And with them, we do educational safety presentations as well, and we also very much want to focus on the advocacy side of Planned Parenthood. Earlier in the year, we also attended the Sexual Assault Awareness March hosted by the Rape and Domestic Violence Information Center with our students, and also collab with the Civic Club, my apologies, to come to this field trip. Due to that, we have been able to form connections with them and are planning to collaborate with them to encourage students to volunteer at RDVIC later this year. Along with that, last year we hosted the Period of Giving at MHS, which is basically a period drive for people to come over and donate period products for us to use in a future project, which we consist of the club setting up lockers around the school and a little library box full of free menstrual products and other hygiene products free to all of the students around the school. It was highly successful. As you can see, we have a box right here full of our period products and our students paying these period products. And then near the end of the school year for 2021-2022, we had our Mental Health Awareness Month to kind of close off the school year, and we posted mental health awareness resources made by our students as well.
I am one of the 3 co-editors-in-chief for Morgantown High School's literary magazine, The Red and Blue Review. I'm co-editor-in-chief in charge of social media and public relations. That's why I'm here. Our other 2 co-editors-in-chief are Belle Liu, who is in charge of our graphic design, and Flynn Basil, who's in charge of our student staff liaison. And the Red and Blue Review is pretty much completely run by student editors with just a little bit of guidance from our sponsors, Mr. and Mrs. Leone. We get submissions from every single grade of students, and we take them and we, review them for like, yeah, this is what we can publish, this is what can't be published, and then we have our students that are more interested in graphic design actually design some of the pages, which I decided to include here. And a lot of our pages, Belle was absolutely amazing and completely revolutionized how our magazine is made and combined actual stories, and this is an artwork that we got submitted. We take visual art, poetry, and short story submissions, not just, writing. And that's, one of our wonderful things. The Red and Blue Review is incredibly important as it gives students on both sides, as student editors and those who are submitting, perspective on what goes into the writing, editing, and publishing process. And students that get their work featured in the review gain a lot more confidence in their own writing and art abilities. I myself, one of my poems was published last year in the review, and that gave me the confidence to submit it to a poetry contest, and now my poem is getting published in an actual book with the American Library of Poetry in one of their greatest of collections.
So the Green Initiative Club is a long-standing club at Morgantown High School. We've been around for about 16 years, and our main goal is to focus teaching sustainability and environmentalism in a hands-on manner. The main way we've been doing this throughout our club's existence has been working on and facilitating the recycling program at Morgantown High School. So once a week we would run around the school, collect all the recycling bins, sort them out, and then have the waste from them recycled. However, with the pandemic, we were forced to stop recycling due to COVID concerns, so we had to find new ways to implement the sustainability and environmentalism kind of teaching into our students. The way we did that was through reaching out to community sponsors like the Monongalia County Commission and fundraising money for an outdoor garden at Morgantown High School. We secured $400 for that, and working with a teacher at Morgantown High School, Dr. Davis, we've secured over $10,000 from the federal government to build an outdoor classroom at Morgantown High School. As the pandemic comes to an end and COVID restrictions have been dropped at Morgantown High School, we've gone back and reached out to Mr. Mahalko to begin recycling again at Morgantown High School. Before the pandemic, we were recycling 800 pounds of plastic, so we're hoping to get back to that quota before. You can see in these pictures, we also focus on maintaining all the planters around the school to just keep Morgantown High School a nice, friendly environment.
That's all we got for the slideshow.
We can talk about some other things, though. The civic education at Morgantown High School is also taking great leaps in the past couple years. So we founded a youth in government program. So a group of our students will be heading down to Charleston, West Virginia around late April to early May, working with other students from around the state at Charleston to pass mock bills and learn civic education in a hands-on manner. The Boys State and Girls State programs have also grown exponentially in Morgantown High School compared to other areas of the state. 66% of the students from Morgantown High School that went to the American Legion's Boys State this year won a state level position, which is one of the most prestigious positions you can win at Boys State. For a little bit of context, if you don't know, Boys State is a week-long camp down at Jackson's Mill, sponsored by the American Legion, where students learn how to be good citizens in a hands-on manner. So students can either opt to be in a political field, a legislator, or a lawyer field, a forensics field, an EMS field, an officers field, or a forensics field. So it allows students who attend the camp to try out a lot of different things and really get a feel for what they want to do after high school. Then they spend half the week running for positions. So personally, I ran for the Commissioner of Agriculture, a state level position, and then the entire camp voted for their state level positions. From that, we had, like I said, we had 66% of Morgantown High School attendees reach one of those coveted state level positions. And then me personally, I was chosen to attend the American Legion's Boys Nation, which there's a boys state in every state of the country. Each boys state sends 2 representatives from that boys state to serve as their senators at Boys Nation in the Capitol, where I had the pleasure of meeting Ms. Shelley Moore Capito and discussing some policy agendas with her in the Capitol. All right, well, thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you all very much for that presentation under correspondence. And then what we're going to do now is the levy presentation is going to be uploaded. And while we're doing that, we're going to have the National Domestic Violence Awareness Month proclamation. And I believe, is Hannah here to accept it? Okay. So we're gonna meet up there by the podium. Nice. So you're Hannah. Whereas the crime of domestic violence violates an individual's privacy, dignity, security, and humanity due to systemic use of physical, emotional, sexual, psychological, and economic control and or abuse, including abuse to children and the elderly. And whereas domestic violence against the citizens of Monongalia County continues to affect every person in Monongalia County as a victim, survivor, or a family member, domestic partner, friend, coworker, or neighbor of a victim or survivor. And whereas the problems of domestic violence are not confined to any group or groups of people, but cut across all economic, racial, gender, and societal barriers, and are supported by societal indifference. And whereas to prevent the future abuse of our citizens, it is critical to foster greater public awareness of the causes and effects of domestic violence and to address this problem on every civic level. And whereas staff of the Rape and Domestic Violence Information Center, alongside volunteers, promote domestic violence prevention by offering educational services in Monongalia County throughout the year. And whereas the Rape and Domestic Violence Information Center requests public support and assistance as it continues to work toward a society where all people can live in peace, free from violence and exploitation. Now therefore I, Jenny Celine, Mayor of the City of Morgantown, West Virginia, in recognition of the important work done by the Rape and Domestic Violence Information Center serving Monongalia, Preston, and Taylor counties, as well as all other domestic violence programs, the City of Morgantown does hereby proclaim the month of October as National Domestic Violence Awareness Month in the City of Morgantown, and urges all citizens to actively participate in the scheduled activities and programs to work towards improving victim safety and holding perpetrators of domestic abuse accountable for their actions against individual victims and society as a whole. We commend this observance to all citizens, and I very much appreciate you coming to receive this, Hannah. And I'd like to present that to you. And if you would like to address us about any of the activities that are going on, you're welcome to have this.
Sure, thank you. I will say we do have a calendar full of events for DVAM, and I actually did email all of you this afternoon. I'm sending you our flyer for our Mon County Candlelight Vigil in remembrance of all those that have lost their lives to domestic violence and in honor of those who have survived. On behalf of our DVIC, I do just want to say thank you very much for your continued support to us and to the community, and we would not be able to do what we do without you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we are back up to item B, This is the Monongahela County EMS levy presentation, and you must be Forrest Wayan.
I'm Forrest, yes. Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Hello.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the
you.
council and staff. Thank you all for having me. I want to just take a couple minutes. I know you have a packed agenda. I know it wasn't this packed when I initially started, but I want to come tonight to talk about an important issue that if you've been paying attention in Mon County in the last couple of years, there's been a lot of focus on and a lot of efforts put forth by both of your health systems and the county commission, and I'm trying to get out to speak to all the governmental bodies and public entities to talk about what's happening both with EMS and the EMS levy. So one of the nice things, and you all, just a quick refresher in case you weren't here, I am trying to talk fast because I know you have a lot going on, but in 2019, Mon Health, W Medicine merged the two EMS systems in Mon County, worked in partnership with the County Commission, and developed a single unified agency to serve all the citizens of Mon County, which was really nice. It was a very progressive thing to do, which, if you look around West Virginia, is not something that happens a lot. And it's been a really great thing. It gave us some runway to get some data and allowed us to put some efficiencies in place, which a lot of counties aren't lucky to have. So I think that's a really great thing, and we need to applaud. Part of this partnership basically works out that how Mon Ems is funded is basically through the patients that we actually do end up transporting to the hospital. Mon Health and W Medicine basically fund the shortfall on an annual basis right now. And this past year, Mon County has started pitching in as well. Part of that conversation was that we asked the citizens of Mon County to approve a levy to basically fund the readiness costs to ensure that we as a community have access to EMS care in all the corners of the county at any time, day or night, to meet our needs. We're governed by a body that has both Mon Health and W Medicine county representatives and community representatives. So it's a very fantastic board. They're very difficult to deal with sometimes, but they're good. The EMS is in crisis. If you've watched any national news in the last couple of years, EMS in general around the country is in crisis, and it's not just around the U.S. It's also in West Virginia. Joe Statler has been around. You've seen EMS agencies close. We've seen an EMS agency close in this county. So as much as these national issues are hitting really close to home, and we've got to make sure that at the end of the day, your police, your fire, and your EMS are your safety nets. You know, when you call your family physician and it's after hours and it says, if you're having an emergency, hang up and dial 911. We are your safety nets when everything else falls down. So since the merger, we've added some stations. We've added a station downtown. We've added a station in Saberton to try to get more care closer to the patients, using data-driven models and all that type of thing. But at the end of the day, there's a readiness cost to ensure that a volume-based model, the way EMS was built in the 80s and 90s, that we get paid to go to the hospital, that's fantastic. One of the things that doesn't account for is the amount of patients that we don't end up at the hospital, the ones we get canceled for, and all of these complex events and these situations where care, we only get compensated if we actually take someone to a hospital and if they have insurance or have some sort of reimbursement mechanism. So all the other care that we provide is not something that is reimbursable, so there's a readiness cost. And frankly, you don't want us to be on every call all the time if there's not an ambulance available for when you start having chest pain or when you get into a car wreck. That's not something that you would necessarily want. This is not a new slide, but if you've seen anything with the county commission, basically our county is broken up into zones, and for a Mon Ems ambulance to break even in those zones for a 911 ambulance, it needs to answer about 6.2 calls per day. And that's assuming that everybody has insurance and that insurance pays. Luckily, downtown and Evansdale are the two areas of the county that actually do make sense. Everywhere else, the Blacksvilles, the Cheat Lakes, the Clinton districts, et cetera, that doesn't necessarily make sense. If you were to open up an EMS business in Morgantown, you would do it downtown and in Evansdale. I got a couple examples on there, but basically, the one that hits close to home for Morgantown, and to make this sort of come home, is the night of the shelter, the roof on the shelter up at the Ramona Inn. When that call went out, obviously, chief was involved, the fire department was involved. When a call like that goes out, we of course have to send the cavalry, right? We don't know how many patients are gone. We have to account for everyone. We have to make sure no one's hurt. So we end up taking 20 or 30 folks up there, just like fire and other folks. Thankfully, no one was hurt, but that includes a ton of resources that are tractor trailers, multiple mass casualty incident stuff. Myself and a couple of my command staff were up there. And it's great. That's what we're there for. We got those folks all secured. We found everybody. We moved them to another hotel. Everything's fantastic. At the end of the day, there's no one to send that bill to because the EMS model is made to take people to a hospital. Yet, the people at that facility, you all, our constituents, want our care there. And I think that's just a really important piece to start to think of why readiness costs and ensuring that EMS is available is just an important thing to keep top of mind. I won't bore you with EMS billing, but just know that in general, and I'm sure Mr. Goldberg would agree, healthcare billing is really messed up. It's got a whole lot of flaws. The EMS side is really, really complicated and really, really messed up, but it doesn't account for all the things that really needs to ensure that EMS is provided. We can get into that. 911 calls are increasing on an annual basis. And probably the biggest part of that, and unfortunately this happens a lot in the downtown area, is that the non-billable calls, the calls that don't meet criteria for billing, either the patient doesn't have insurance, or is it something that we're canceled on, or someone doesn't want to go to the hospital, that's not something that we can bill for. So that also is increasing. So as we start to talk about the need for an EMS levy in Mon County, some of the reasons become super apparent. So quickly moving over to the levy, of all the counties in West Virginia, 66% provide some sort of EMS funding. Mon County is now into that mix as of this fiscal year. Of the counties that fund, they fund anywhere between 22 cents to $22 per capita. I like to do per capita because it helps to compare the both more populous and the more rural counties. The state average is about $47. And there's a slide here, which I'll send all this to you all when you have more time to look over it. But basically that falls with counties that are similar to Mon County around the U.S. We're in that range of the $40, $50 per capita as far as average of counties that provides very similar services. So the levy request that we have to all the citizens of Mon County is a 4-year levy of about $17 million, about 4.4 a year. And most people want to know what that means to them. So on $100,000 of assessed property value, that's assessed, not appraised, right? It's about $28 a year. So depending on your assessed value, that's going to go up slightly. But if you think about it, $2.50 or depending on $5 a month to ensure that EMS services are available for you in wherever corner of the county that you live, I think it's a super important thing to have. We have, in an effort to be transparent, obviously I've been in a bunch of public meetings and I thank you all for your time. The monems.org/levy is an information page. We have an email address, levy@monems.org. We're trying to get as much information out as possible if people have questions. If you all have questions, I know you're busy tonight, but if you want to talk more, I'm happy to come back at any time and maybe come meet with you all and share any other information. And with that, I'll take any questions or thank you for your time.
We don't usually take questions.
Okay.
Because this is kind of a presentation.
Sure.
I'm going to just look up and down here and see if anyone has a question, and we'll just kind of vote on whether we would like to suspend the rules for that. Is there anybody that has a question that we want to suspend the rules for, or are we good?
I have a kind
Alright.
of silly question.
All right, all in favor of suspending the rules to ask a silly
Certainly.
Where can I get one of those yard signs?
Email that email address, levy@monems.org. Thank you.
There you go. That could be useful information for somebody
Absolutely,
else.
yes.
All
That
right.
levy@monems.org is open. Send your questions. The questions that we have received, we're putting all those answers on that website as well. We're trying to be very transparent. Both the county commission and both the health systems have been fantastic in getting this up and running and getting Mon County, which obviously serves Morgantown, a very efficient, effective EMS service, and we're really happy to be a part of that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Forrest. Let's see. This one's for you, City Clerk. So this is for Christine Wade and her office and all of municipal government. So I'm going to read this and then I'm going to bring it down to you. So whereas Governor Justice has proclaimed October 17th to 21st 2022 as Municipal Government Week in West Virginia and encourages all citizens to become more informed about their government. And whereas all incorporated cities, towns, and villages in West Virginia provide services to their citizens, and whereas citizens of cities, towns, and villages may not be totally aware of those services and who is responsible for seeing they are efficiently provided, and whereas municipal officials desire to inform their citizens and to make them more aware of the investment made on their behalf, and whereas municipal officials are planning various events to better inform citizens during Municipal Government Week, and whereas one of the highest priorities is to educate in the Mountain State as to what municipal government is and the positive impact it has on their lives, and whereas the West Virginia Municipal League will assist in educating students and installing positive perception of government, particularly at the municipal level. Now therefore, I, Jenny Celine, the Mayor of the City of Morgantown, West Virginia, do hereby proclaim the week of October 17th through 21st as Municipal Government Week. And we're going to bring this down and deliver it to the city clerk. And then if you just wanted to tell people a little bit of what's going on. So, I'll hand it to you. Thank you. Good. And you can tell people all about it.
Okay, so we have some things going on the week of October 17th through the 21st, so to celebrate Municipal Government Week. Monday, October 17th at 6 p.m., the Morgantown Public Library will be hosting a read aloud, and it will be a community service themed read aloud. And so that is at 6 p.m., ages 6 to 12. Of course, we invite everyone to attend. It will be a way to explore how we can better serve our community. So that's our theme. The mayor has chosen a few of the books to read to the children. So we invite you all to come to the Morgantown Public Library at 6 p.m. on October 17th. Tuesday, October 18th, at our regular council meeting, we will be having, the mayor will be reading some letters from students from Eastwood Elementary. They are writing on If I Were a Mayor. So we have not done that in a long time. So hopefully you all will come back and spend the evening with us on October 18th to hear what all the students have to say about being a mayor. And then lastly, on Thursday, October 20th at 9 a.m. in the municipal courtroom, we invite everyone to come and share some time with the Morgantown High students to have their mock city council meeting. And I anticipate that it's going to be pretty exciting. I'm not sure of the topic yet, but once we get that information, we'll make sure that we put it out to the media so that everyone is aware and they can come and share the date with us. So thanks, everyone. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Now we have Indigenous Peoples Day Proclamation, and if Bonnie Brown and Danny Trejo wanted to come forward. Right there. Okay. So what I'm going to do is speak louder, apparently. So here we are. So this is the longest proclamation that we've ever had. So we are going to be reading excerpts. And all of it is important information, but we are going to read a few excerpts because of the length of it. But it's much appreciated and well researched. The City of Morgantown, West Virginia, officially adopted a 2020 strategic plan for diversity, equity, and inclusion, and has formally embraced the goal of being an inclusive community that welcomes diversity and supports social justice. And whereas Indigenous people, also referred to collectively as Native Americans or American Indians and Alaskan Natives, have lived upon this land since time immemorial, and archaeological sites exist throughout the state and in Morgantown. Now, you said you were gonna help me with pronunciation if I need it. So, whereas Iroquois has another name.
The Haudenosaunee,
Or Iroquois nations, the Shawnee,
Lenape,
or Delaware, and other historic tribes regard this area as being within their ancestral lands, and there are descendants of indigenous peoples living here today with more than 570 federally recognized Native nations in the U.S. and nearly 9 million Native people nationwide. And whereas innumerable U.S. place names come from indigenous languages, notably, yes, and it's meaning the river of falling banks, which I think is wonderful, because that's what we have here. Whereas indigenous peoples have provided friendship, guidance, economic trade, political alliance, and protection. Native American men and women have an enduring, distinguished record of serving in the U.S. military at a rate 5 times greater than the national average. Whereas over the centuries, Native Americans have generously provided food to starving pilgrims, Revolutionary Army troops at Valley Forge, the Lewis and Clark expedition, and countless others. Whereas societal progress has been accomplished through the contributions of indigenous peoples, including the foundation of the country's democratic representational form of government. Whereas Indigenous Peoples Day, first proposed in 1977 by a delegation of Native nations to the UN-sponsored International Conference on Discrimination Against Indigenous Populations in the Americas. Whereas throughout the country, an estimated 130 cities and 30 states have declared Indigenous Peoples Day. And in doing so, collectively acknowledge Indigenous peoples and help promote a healthy, inclusive, and respectful path forward. Whereas the City of Morgantown recognizes Indigenous peoples' history, perseverance, past and ongoing contributions, and societal presence with a day that celebrates and honors Indigenous people. Whereas WVU is hosting a major exhibit, Indigenous Appalachia, in the downtown campus library through May 2023. And the WVU is hosting an exhibit by artist and WVU Peace Tree guest of honor, Marie Watt from the Seneca Nation through December 11th, 2023. And the Evansdale Library will feature the exhibit Hidden No More, researching the enduring impact of Native American and enslaved people on the Evansdale neighborhood and WVU in those areas in spring 2023. Whereas the City of Morgantown wishes to preserve and promote the history and culture of Indigenous people by officially observing Indigenous Peoples Day. Therefore, I, Jenny Celine, Mayor of the City of Morgantown, do hereby declare the second Monday of October as Indigenous Peoples Day in the City of Morgantown and encourage continued recognition, appreciation, and celebration of Indigenous people through goodwill, respect, friendship, and I strongly encourage individual residents, schools, businesses, public, and private organizations to become more informed, educated, and engaged. So, thank you very much. Thank you very much. And if you wanted to tell anyone about that exhibit, please feel free, and I appreciate you all coming forward to that.
Thank you, Mayor Celine. So I want to thank the mayor on behalf of everyone on the Human Rights Commission, including my fellow commissioner, Danny Trejo, but also former Commissioner Don Spencer and Jan Derry and others who unanimously passed a resolution commemorating Indigenous Peoples Day and Indigenous Land Acknowledgement. This is a proclamation for this year only. We're grateful for that. This is one way to address and counter centuries of erasure. It is probably the longest proclamation that you've read in a long time, but it also is trying to encompass hundreds of years of cultural erasure of the Indigenous people of this region. So one quick correction, the Marie Watt exhibit is up through December of 2022. So there are cards on that exhibit on the back table, as well as flyers and cards for the Indigenous Appalachia exhibit. So thank you all, and we hope that you will find a productive, fruitful way to commemorate Indigenous Peoples Day next Monday on the 10th. So thank you again.
Thank you.
I think we have a pretty healthy number of proclamations today. So now we have the Monarch Butterfly Conservation Week Proclamation, and Molly Negas from the Board of Directors for the Monongahela, Monongalia. That river in that county, I know the difference, but man, you go back and forth. At the Mon Arts Center. So we have proclamation. We'd also like people to know that we have become a monarch city, city of Morgantown, and that as a monarch city, we are going to be promoting monarch butterflies and having areas for them to feed. And we're thinking maybe one of these could go out at the Botanic Garden, because they certainly have some native plant areas that would be appropriate for butterflies, and maybe one along the trail or at Bow Park or something. Whereas the distinctively vibrant monarch butterflies and caterpillars delight the Morgantown community and pollinate local plants, whereas the West Virginia legislature elected the monarch as the state butterfly in 1995, and by resolution in 2004 established September 12th as Monarch Butterfly Day each year in the state of West Virginia, and whereas the decline in monarch butterflies, including 84% of their population in the eastern U.S. over the past 2 decades, spurred the International Union for Conservation of Nature in 2022 to declare the monarch an endangered species and to urge action to prevent extinction due to climate change, pesticides and herbicides, and loss of food and habitat. Whereas the only food the monarch caterpillar can eat is milkweed, including West Virginia's native varieties, which are butterfly milkweed, common milkweed, and swamp milkweed, whereas monarch butterflies and caterpillars require Morgantown community intervention by establishing native milkweed and monarch-friendly pollinator gardens and avoiding use of pesticides and herbicides, and whereas monarchs at Mon Arts Festival at the Monongahela Arts Center will provide local arts and environmental education activities and resources, whereas Monarch City USA is a nonprofit that uses municipal outreach to help cities conserve monarch butterfly habitat to support healthy migration and reproduction. Now therefore I, Jenny Celine, Mayor of the City of Morgantown, do hereby proclaim the week of October 4th through 10th as Monarch Butterfly Conservation Week. So be it resolved that the City of Morgantown encourages neighbors, schools, community organizations, businesses, city departments, and boards and commissions to establish native milkweed and monarch-friendly pollinator gardens in personal and community gardens and in public spaces. Be it further resolved that we support community outreach about monarch butterflies, such as the Monarchs at Mon Arts Festival. And be it resolved that we reaffirm our commitment to environmental justice and the intention to become the first West Virginia city to become a member of Monarch City USA, which we have done. I know that personally in my yard I have some species of milkweed and have had monarch caterpillars there. So I would like to give this to you and appreciate your work.
Thank you, Mayor.
And thank you very much. And if you have anything that you would like to say, let me turn this around.
Absolutely, thank you.
Yep. And you can, I'm going to go back up here, but you can tell us about what's going on.
Thank you. We hope you all can join us at the Monongahela Arts Center this weekend. That's the MAC. Monarchs at Mon Arts Festival will be 11 to 4 on Saturday. It's a free event. We're going to be having a Mon Art show, so a monarch butterfly themed art gallery exhibit, a pollinator pop-up shop, all kinds of monarch butterfly themed arts and crafts, and butterfly wing selfie station, and lots of environmental education. Learn about native plants, what's best to grow monarch-friendly pollinator garden, and get free seeds. Thank you so much for coming. It is Saturday, 11 to 4 at the MAC downtown. is a free event, and thank you all for your support.
Thank you. We do not have any public hearings. Oh, pardon me. Thank you for reminding me. There's one additional piece of correspondence.
I was asked to read a letter received by the city attorney today from Main Street Morgantown. Mr. Hawes, on behalf of Main Street Morgantown and its board of directors, we wish to advocate on behalf of our members, merchants, residents, and other stakeholders who have noticed a rise in safety issues in our downtown district. Our merchants and their employees have expressed concern for recent events, including open, unsafe, and illegal drug use, theft, and late evening assaults that infringe upon the safety and well-being of others. These safety issues have a negative impact on everyone, from residents, merchants, property owners, students, and others. Main Street Morgantown's mission is to develop and promote vibrant and prosperous downtown and wharf districts. We stand ready to work together with the City of Morgantown to solve complex problems and identify potential solutions to preserve the safety, health, and well-being of all in our streets. Sincerely, A.J. Hammond, Board President for Main Street Morgantown.
Thank you. We do not have, pardon me. We do not have any public hearings this evening, and I'm trying to remember if we had boards and commissions. I don't think we have any boards and commissions. And so now we are to the public portion, which shall be subject to rules established by council and adopted by resolution. You would have, we would have 4 minutes to speak, and if you would state your name and your address, and make sure that there are no personal remarks, negative personal remarks. Anyway, we don't accept personal remarks. So we would start with David Goldberg.
Good evening. Whoop, as I break your microphone. David Goldberg, 1200 J.D. Anderson Drive, Morgantown, West Virginia. I'm here as CEO of Mon Health Medical Center and Mon Health System. It has been about a year since I was in front of council. A couple things have happened over the last year. One, my 4-year anniversary being back in town. So I like to think that's a celebration no matter what Forrest Wyan said. I'm not that hard to work with. Secondly, as many of you heard, we have announced a merger and a coming together between Mon Health System and Charleston Area Medical Center to create Vandalia Health. That was announced on the 1st of September. We had Vandalia Day at Mon Health Medical Center and all of our facilities across Mon Health and in Charleston. I drove back and forth in a day, and I have a lot of respect for our elected officials who go back and forth. It's an exciting time. Special thanks to the Building Commission, the County Commission, for supporting our ability to take our bonds at Mon Health Medical Center and bring them together with Charleston Area Medical Center so we have one organized organization. We think that'll give a stronger voice in the state to improve health and wellness, a second statewide voice to be able to deal with health outcomes. I'm listening tonight, and all of us are experiencing EMS closures, increased behavioral health issues. We have some of the toughest comorbidities in the state of West Virginia, and we are going to be part of that and drive the solutions to make it a much more healthy community. So that's important. The other is today is a very special day. It's 1 year ago today, our emergency room at Mon Health Medical Center was recognized and certified as a geriatric center of excellence for those coming into the emergency room. We are a Medicare population and want to be able to be very focused to our seniors and make sure that the care to seniors is a little different to those of us who are not seniors, even though we are aging rapidly, especially if you are in the healthcare industry through the pandemic. As I saw my headshot that Forrest put up, I had black hair, I had more hair, I'm now grayer and thinning. So it's been an interesting experience. Also, we celebrated today recognizing what's called the Pathways to Success, a program that was funded by the Hazel Ruby McQueen Trust. It allowed us to be able to identify people who are re-entering the workforce who might not be eligible for work. Many of them live either in shelters or don't have permanent housing. Some of them don't have permanent jobs. Some of them are in recovery. Some of them are just have not been able to get the hand to be able to lead them into employment. We were able to get 5 people initially recognized that are working in various places across Mon Health Medical Center and the Village at Heritage Point with new jobs. Some of them have gone from not having permanent homes to live, now have permanent homes to live and raise their family and contribute back to the community. I think that's a testament to community supporting community, and that's what your community hospital does. So I wanted to come and give you a little bit of an update in that regard. We were talking about indigenous people. Vandalia, it's almost a history quiz tonight. What is Vandalia? It is what this region of the country would have been named if we did not name our state West Virginia. It covers Kentucky, part of Virginia, part of Ohio, part of Pennsylvania, and definitely West Virginia. So we're back to our roots in our name and excited. And lastly, I look forward to sitting down with administration and the city manager to continue to be a partner with you to make sure that the employees of the city of Morgantown and their dependents have the highest quality of care at the best price. And that all health systems and all health organizations, no matter what insurance you choose, all are equally being able to be chosen by your beneficiaries. So I look forward to sitting down with Mr. Hawes soon. And I know it's not customary. If there's any questions by council, I'm glad to answer them. Looking forward to the Sobering Center opening up this week, and to Emily and the council. Ms. Trumbull, thank you for your leadership. To Tom Bloom, to the board in place, thank you for the ability to get that up and running. It is going to be a godsend for the community. If not, thank you very much.
Don't worry about that microphone, it's actually Tom's.
I'll give it back to you.
Tom Bloom. We get a 2-for-1 here.
Yes, you get 2
He says 2 groups represented.
Yes. And before you push the button, I'm going to be speaking as a group. What? Yes. No, there's no button. I mean, no light yet. Do I have to push a button? No, you don't have to do anything. See? It doesn't work for me. That's scary.
Wishful thinking.
Yes. That's right. Yeah. Okay.
She'll
Just
find a
ask that. I'm going to be speaking as a group.
She'll find a way.
Okay, well, it's not long. Okay. Thank you. My name is Tom Bloom, and I come before you to represent 2 groups tonight. I live at 1021 Ashton Drive. I stand before you as a former city council member of 14 years, but I will also be speaking for the following individuals. Ron Justice, 18 years. Jim Manila, 9 years. Frank Salusi, 6 years, who is here. Ron Bain, 16 years. Wes Nugent, who is here, 14 years. And Ryan Wallace for 2 years. As former city council members, we are concerned with this major change in the MUB ordinance. MUB grew out of a lawsuit before then Chief Circuit Judge Larry Starcher over the City Sanitary Board's failure to deal with the overtaxed sewer system in Suncrest. The Morgantown Water Commission was ordered by Judge Starcher, an independent city utility, to merge with the Sanitary Board, a legislatively mandated city board. MUB is a utility under the PSC jurisdiction and the only water treatment facility in Montague County. Did you know that it also serves the residents in Pennsylvania, does business in Preston County, as well as western Mon County beyond Blacksville? This is a huge economic issue, requiring a constant water source and a large customer base. That is why the PSC continues to require MUB to take over smaller county water systems to make the system better for all citizens. I actually was on city council when we formed MUB in 1987, and our goal was very clear: to make it apolitical, without any interference from city council. The actions you are taking causes all of us great concern. The city ordinance governing MUB does not provide for any governance of MUB's operations by city council except for the following, because I wrote this in: issuance of bonds, appointment of board members, and setting the rates. The proposed ordinance is troubling in many ways, But taking MUB's property away and giving it to the city is the most disturbing, considering the majority of the ratepayers and customers live outside the city limits and city boundaries. We ask you very simply, what issue is the city of Morgantown trying to resolve with this ordinance? If the concern is communication, then this group strongly supports the proposal that I'm about to make from the County Commission. Now I'm taking off my hat, and now I will speak as the president of the County Commission on the basis of the 3 county commissioners. On behalf of the county commissioners, we are asking for your consideration to review your ordinance and consider the following. 1, the makeup of the MUB board would be as following. 2 members be chosen by city council members, or it could be city council members. 2 members be chosen by county commissioners or county commissioners. And the final position be chosen by the MAP board. In this way, we resolve many of your concerns, communication being the most important, and then also resolving the county's residents' concerns who believe they are not being represented with your proposed ordinance. This is very similar to what we've done for the Transit Authority. We also ask, very importantly, that you consider dropping 169.043 Section F in your ordinance. We are concerned that with the broad powers currently given to MUB, the idea that any amount, and your proposal was $1 million, is clearly arbitrary and capricious. We then third say the concern about the line, quote, should the board wish to pursue a construction project not in the ordinary course of business, it shall propose such project to the city council for consideration of approval by resolution or ordinance. Concerns us greatly. We clearly believe that this section interferes with the county commission's statutory authority and will stifle development and ultimately undermine the county and the city's future economic growth. So finally, the majority of the ratepayers and the majority of the customers for MUB live outside the city limits. We believe our offer is a fair compromise. There are 16,000 out of county, 10,000 city residents who are ratepayers. But we believe this is a fair compromise and should resolve any issue of communication between the city, the county, and MUB. We hope you will strongly consider our recommendation. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Wes Nugent.
Council and administration, for those non-lifetime members of City Council who may not know me, as Commissioner Bloom mentioned, I served the citizens and taxpayers actually for 6 years. It may have felt like 14, but it was in fact 6, from 2011 to 2017. I am Wes Nugent, 126 Willowdale Road. It was just during this time when City Council changed the Morgantown Utility Board composition to include non-resident ratepayers. As a council member, I supported expanding the board to include those non-resident ratepayers as an inherent matter of fairness. For the last 20 years, Wiles Hill Highland Park is a place that my family has called home. In the summer of 2021, like so many others in Morgantown city limits, our basement took on stormwater from the second of those catastrophic rains that our community received. Pompano Run flows into our local neighborhood sewer system. No one in our family was at home when the storm occurred to witness anything other than a wet, messy aftermath. The stormwater we received was likely a result of the water sewer main artery along Willowdale Road being at capacity or having developed a vacuum between our gutters and the main, which then prevented waters from flowing properly. Regardless of what caused our problem, we were fortunate to only be impacted once. Neighbors down the line from us were inundated multiple times last year, as were residents in other parts of the system in which Pompano Run flows into. In December 2021, it's safe to say we were excited to learn about the proposed $2 million city-county commitment to replace and improve the sanitary sewer system in front of our home on Willowdale Road to Stewart Street. We realized inconveniences would come from this important infrastructure upgrade project, but our homes, our property, our investments, our lives would be made more secure. What's happened since that time to jeopardize this critical infrastructure problem is precisely the reason why MUB ratepayers inside and outside city limits don't trust this city council to make informed decisions that are in the best interest of all ratepayers. What we have here is a failure to communicate, but we needn't look beyond the dais to see where the responsibility rests. The problem seems to stem from City Council's bullish attempt to try and force its agenda, as demonstrated by a push for recreational amenities at the new dam, to a purpose which is inconsistent, indeed incompatible with the need for reliable, safe, fresh drinking water. Given recent past history and the current trajectory of our city, I support Commissioner Bloom's call to overhaul MUB in a way that ensures county residents have their voices preserved and aren't armed into some backdoor annexation attempt. My advice to council is simple. Stop digging and don't worsen the situation tonight. The arguments presented thus far don't hold water. Citizens and ratepayers need the certainty that comes from an independent utility board free of political interference. I'll leave you with this. As a respected man and great community champion, the late Milt Cohen so famously said to City Council, "You're nothing but a bunch of kids playing with matches." Thank you.
Todd Stainbrook. Pardon?
Can I check this thing?
She wants to see if she can get the thing working first.
Oh, okay.
Well,
Actually, most people have done pretty good with the 4 minutes, even without the timer.
You trained us well.
I have.
Mr. Stainbrook will do it. If you see her hand go up, that means that you're at the time.
I timed it. We're okay.
Okay,
And
appreciate
I wish I
it.
could say I'd be as nice as the other fellows, but you know me, so. All right, communication. That's the reason for your all's intrusion of the Morgantown Utility Board. With the City Council's history, would the public have any faith in your skills of communication? How is your communication with the city attorney? I must call him yours because he certainly isn't an attorney for the people.
We're trying to not have personal remarks, so if you could just
My
talk about
point
the
is
issues that you care
your
about.
communication with him seems to be a problem, and you're trying to ask the public to assume that your communication with Morgantown Utility Board would be good.
Well,
and
just
do
keep
something
it
positive
to the
for our
issues.
community. So
We're working
that's
hard
where,
to
you know,
keep it to the issues. Whatever the issues are that irritate you, I want to hear all about it.
This is part of the issue. If you can't communicate with your attorney to settle
I'm not
any
gonna-
one of the other over 50 lawsuits within the community that is against the city of Morgantown, how do we expect you to communicate with the public and Morgantown Utility Board any better? I mean, that's a far greater situation than just resolving the situations with the 50 lawsuits or 50-plus lawsuits. So yes, I'm not trying to be personal. The fact that you have a lack of communication in every aspect of the city government is a problem, and then you expect us to say, why don't you control the permits and be okay with that? That doesn't work. So I'll continue, but it's not personal. Ultimately, you guys are responsible for Bow Park. We have 2 city council members, I believe, still on the board. I know we had a levy passed. I know the money's there. I know you guys had a proposed architectural drawing renderance of the ice rink. I don't know why it was accepted, but you guys liked it, I guess. The bid was crazy. And I'm getting off track because you got me off track, but that's okay.
Pardon.
It's okay. We had 4 teams come in from out of state over the weekend to play a nice little tournament with the 8-year-old kids. We had 30 little hockey players in one locker room and at least 30 adults dressing those 30 little hockey players. So a total of 60 people in a locker room that's made for 15. It's an embarrassment when people come here to play hockey. I go to watch WVU Pitt. There's nowhere to sit. I can't even have a nice warm cup of cocoa while watching a hockey game because you took away the concession stand and there's nothing that works at the rink to get a cup of hot chocolate or coffee or anything, which is, you know, one of the staples of going to a nice hockey game in the middle of the winter. We've been told that rink's coming. It'd be great if we could have some communication with the public to let us know when that may be. And again, we're back to the communication. There are several reasons why the communication is a trust issue with the public. It'd be very refreshing for the council to actually admit why they want to take on the Morgantown Utility Board. Communication isn't it. Communication isn't a factor. It's never been an issue for you guys. You don't try communication. I mean, you couldn't communicate with your city manager as to whether he lived in the city or he didn't. It took an investigation. What is the real reason that you guys want to do this? Could it be the West Virginia Can't Wait and affordable housing? Make sure landlords, your evil landlords as you guys call them, supplies that for individuals? What is the reason? You have to look at it from the general public. What in the world could this city council be thinking? You're in for a fight, and it won't stop. So I would reconsider the entire ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Don Spencer.
I'm gonna pass, thank you.
You sure?
Yes, thank you.
I've never seen you pass in my life.
Not very often.
All right. Well, we'll welcome you the next time you'd like to speak.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that's interested in speaking? You do not have to be signed up on the list to speak. So if there's anyone else who would like to speak, this is your moment. Okay. Close this public portion. Special committee reports. Is there anyone on this committee that has not been meeting who would like to speak on this issue? Because several of you are on groups that are talking about these issues. So that would be if Danielle Trumbull or Brian Butcher would like to speak about anything about those issues, and otherwise you can just do it during your council reports.
Do you want me to?
Yeah.
I met with the Coalition to End Homelessness yesterday. There was a Built for Zero meeting. We're to the point where we are starting some action items through that committee, and they're working to put together some case management guidelines, things like that. We also discussed the opportunity to do a point-in-time count in the fall, but based on timeline, at this point, it would happen mid-November. We decided that the weather was not going to be significantly different than it would be the normal federally mandated time in January, so we are just going to plan for an extra thorough January point-in-time count, and then also try to do one next summer instead. The next meeting for that is scheduled. The place has not yet been finalized. We met at Bow Park yesterday, but there's some work upcoming on the Marilla Center. So when I find out more about that, I can let any council people that are interested know. Other than that, I met with the representative of the United Way last week to begin discussing the plans for a cold weather shelter, and I'm awaiting more information from them on that as well.
Great. And I don't know if Councilor Butcher had anything to add.
I think Danielle covered it pretty well. We probably will have, like, from what I understand, a set plan to, like, present to the county and the city as far as like budget and stuff like that. But we're also trying to work with community partners because it's going to be probably a significant chunk of change more than last year in terms of funding it. So like trying to figure out other ways of funding. So, but
Thank
yeah.
you. Just, I know that things are moving forward,
Oh,
so
okay.
wanting to make sure that people know that things are moving forward.
Councilwoman Vega, we are working with First Presbyterian Church as like a community organization as well to work on like the alternative hotel program as well, which has been funded through United Way. That's more of like a supplement to the cold weather shelter, just for like families and stuff like that that may not necessarily be good in a communal setting. But and we'll have a meeting on that next on the 13th at First Presbyterian, which is open to the public. It's anybody can come and have input for that. So
Thank you.
That's it.
Please keep us
yeah,
updated.
I forgot.
So now we have new business. Oh, we don't have a consent agenda, pardon. Now we have new business. Item A, consideration of approval of a first reading of an ordinance amending Article 169 entitled Utility Board, and ask our city manager to start this up.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm pleased to speak on this issue. The ordinance that will amend Article 169, it is intended, contrary to some of the things that were spoken tonight, to improve communication and the flow of information back and forth between the board and the city council. There's been a history of difficulties in information flowing back and forth, and it is believed that the ordinance and the creation of the city council members sitting on that board will help in that flow of information. It'll also clear guidelines for the city and the board. It meets law requirements for setting rates and also the process for project approval. It will provide that one member of the Morgantown Utility Board will be a city council member. That means that four members of the board will be residential customers. This certainly is in line with other city boards that are currently performing their functions established by state law. And may I add that many of the public utility boards, municipal utility boards around the states, is organized in a very similar way. Certainly, if there was an intent to monopolize the control of that board, city council could appoint 3 or 4 members of that board. This is simply to provide an opportunity to feed information back and forth. The city manager would serve as an ex officio non-voting member. I don't know that that's highly controversial at all. It gives directions on the acquisition of real property. It reiterates state law that requires the city to approve rates and construction projects. Nothing in the ordinance would violate the terms of any of our bond ordinances or general or state law. The board members have always appointed, or the city council has always appointed members of the utility board. In fact, I believe there's some history of a city council member having sat on that board, and I have not heard any discussion about what a bad experience that may have been or not. MUB has always been operated under a municipal combined utility system set up and run by the city council with the option to appoint a board. This ordinance defines expectations, which helps with communication, what is in or outside of the ordinary course of business as defined by state law. I believe that Mr. McNulty and I've made this comment many times, that Mr. McNulty and I have great communication. So this isn't an issue of Mr. McNulty and I communicating. I think this will help the board and the city council foster a flow of information that will really make things much easier. I believe that none of these changes are going to have any impact on the day-to-day operations of either MUB or the city of Morgantown. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I believe there's a MUB representative that's wishing to speak. This is not our normal practice, but being done as a courtesy. So thank you.
I was willing to speak in the public section, but this is what was recommended to us. So, okay?
No problem.
Okay. Good evening. My name is J.T. Straffus. My address is 1334 Anderson Avenue in Morgantown. I've lived in Morgantown my entire 65-plus years. I graduated from St. Francis High School in 1974 and WVU Engineering School of Mines in 1978. I want to thank you for allowing the MUB Board of Directors to respond to the proposed ordinance to amending Article 169 entitled Utility Board. I have been an active member of the MUB Utility Board since 2002, and I've been the chairman of the board since 2009. I want to make it perfectly clear that this presentation reflects the MUB Board of Directors. It is not J.T. Straffus talking. I am representing the board. This board guides a first-class organization that provides this community with world-class service. If City Council felt it needed these changes to be in compliance with West Virginia Code or simply to make MUB a better organization, that seems reasonable. Have a conversation with the parties. Review the code. Review the present system. How are we in compliance? How can we improve? And work out a plan. That didn't happen. City Council used a surprise tactic of this ordinance and then followed up with false information to justify. This feels like deja vu all over again. This presentation is quite similar to my presentation to this council in 2018 when MUB opposed the attempt to alter the MUB board with the addition of the city manager as an active board member. Historically, MUB has strived to take the high road when it came to publicly vocalizing the MUB side of many of the recent events that have been publicized. However, it is time we alter that internal policy and discuss a number of facts. This presentation has been put together with the idea that there are no opinions, there's no personal conflict, there's no he thought, she thought. We have worked diligently to verify all the information provided that has backup. The information that will be presented and others can form their own thoughts. There seems to be three major changes to the present ordinance. I'd like to discuss each of those individually. Firstly, the ordinance states, one member shall be a representative of the City Council selected by council from among its members. It is also noted in the ordinance, whereas City Council believes that coordination will be promoted by providing for a member of City Council to serve on the Utility Board and act as a conduit between the City Council and Utility Board to ensure clear and open communication and assist with advanced planning of community projects. So better communication seems to be the purpose, and communication seems to be the hot topic. So let's take a look at that. If the proposed amendments were simply about communication, why were the amendments drafted without the knowledge of or input from the MUB staff or board? Why did MUB only learn of the proposed amendments after the committee of the whole agenda was released to the public when Deputy Mayor Trumbull contacted a MUB board member, Mr. Eric Carlson, then Assistant City Manager Emily Mazzarelli contacted MUB GM Mike McNulty to let Mike know so he wasn't blindsided. So communication is the question. We have heard a few examples of the purported poor communication. The most recent being the most recent MUB project has been discussed is the yet to be designed, or at the time, yet to be designed sewer line replacement project at White Park. At last week's Committee of the whole meeting, Deputy Mayor Trumbull stated, or it may have been after the meeting, I don't feel that council people or Bow Park board members in a city park should have to read about things like that in a newspaper, and I think that most members of both of these bodies did read about that in a newspaper for the first time instead of hearing it from MUB. So I'd like to go through the documented chronological communication that has occurred on this specific project. And there may well have been additional informal communications. December 13, 2021, there was a meeting at MUB's office. Included in the meeting were City Engineer Damian Davis and MUB Assistant General Manager and Chief Engineer Rich Rogers, as well as MUB staff engineers Ken Hacker, Scott Ferguson, and Khalid Britton. The initial topic was Baird Street. Then MUB introduced the sewer line replacement project in White Park in conceptual stage only, but wanted to get the ball rolling on any agreement that may be needed. January 25, 2022. General Manager Mike McNulty hand-delivered a letter to City Manager Kim Hawes. The letter detailed a list of projects that MUB was waiting on the city for approval. Included was a paragraph on University Motors project / sewer line replacement project in White Park. July 30, 2022. There's an email from Rich Rogers in response to Ryan Simonton, City Attorney. The email was copied to Kim Hawes, Emily Mazzarelli, Assistant City Manager, Damian Davis, Drew Gatlin, and Melissa Wiles, Bow Park Executive Director. There was actually a string of emails through August 11, 2022. Each email was copied to the entire group. The emails were due to MUB laying a gravel path of 200 feet or so in January of 2021. That was done to allow access for emergency maintenance and Ryan wanting this gravel removed from the southern end of White Park. MUB explained the original purpose of the gravel and that MUB was trying to set up a meeting with Damian Davis to discuss the sewer line replacement project in White Park. And MUB would like to leave the gravel there until this project was done. August 10, 2022. MUB personnel Mike McNulty, Rich Rogers, and Scott Ferguson met with Damian Davis on site, walked the proposed route, discussed with Damian, MUB providing the city with a plan, site plan, profile, timeline to the city's manager's office once it was finalized. August 11, 2022. Email response to Ryan Simonton, copied Kim Hawes, Emily Mazzarelli, Damian Davis, Drew Gatlin, Melissa Wiles. Explained that MUB had met with Damian Davis on site the day before and that the replacement plan will be provided to the city once finalized. August 30, 2022. Meeting at MUB office. Attendees, City, Damian Davis and Drew Gatlin. MUB, Mike McNulty, Rich Rogers, Corey Jones, Ken Hacker, and Dave Bragg. Discussion was on city paving project, then the sewer line replacement project in White Park, and MUB providing an update on our design efforts. August 31, 2022. Meeting at the City of Morgantown office. City personnel attending, Ryan Simonton, Kim Hawes, Emily Mazzarelli, Melissa Wiles, Jenny Celine, Daniel Trumbull. MUB, J.T. Straffus, Barbara Parsons, Mike McNulty, Rich Rogers, and Jeff Ray. Topic, Flegal Recreation Agreement. The discussion turned to the potential use of the City and Build America Mutual Assurance Company bond funds that MUB has requested City Council to have released, and how MUB might utilize those dollars. Mike McNulty explained that the sewer line replacement project at White Park would be a prime example of how these funds may be used. September 13, 2022, MUB board meeting. Under the general manager's report, Mike McNulty provided an explanation and update on the White Park sewer line project. In attendance at this meeting was Emily Mazzarelli, Assistant City Manager. My math shows 8 different situations meetings, emails, etc., where MUB and city personnel had discussions on the sewer line replacement project at White Park over the past 9 months. And Deputy Mayor Trumbull was present in one of those meetings. MUB's efforts to provide advance notice to this project to the city, as noted, were at a time when the project was not yet designed. Actually, MUB's design, which is approximately 1,000 feet of pipe replacement, and tentative construction schedule, was submitted to the city September 30, 2022. Project is scheduled to begin January 2, 2023, and take 30 days to complete. MUB is sensitive to the White Park concerns and therefore provided substantial advance notice of the project to all noted, including Deputy Mayor Trumbull, Bow Park Executive Director Wiles, City Manager Hawes, City Engineer, and other city staff. I also understand that the Baird Street project was another MUB project that was suggested. There was no communication. I have a complete set of dates, names, etc. that was compiled by Ken Hacker, senior MUB engineer, starting back in July of 2020, with 33 documented correspondences between MUB and the city. I don't think I need to go through each correspondence. I have them if you'd like me to. So, communication. I think I've spoke to it. So we ask ourselves, how does MUB and the city communicate on a regular basis? The following are scheduled minimum communications between the two. Firstly, all MUB meetings are advertised and open to the public, as well as being broadcast on YouTube. And the city has informed MUB that Emily Mazzarelli, Assistant City Manager, is the liaison between MUB and the city, and welcome to attend all MUB meetings and report as needed. Every workday, there is an email correspondence to Damian Davis from MUB supervisors Joey McDonald or Tony Wolf with a list of daily projects, usually sent no later than 7:15 a.m. Every Thursday or Friday, there's an email sent to Damian Davis from Joe McDonald or Tony Wolf with a list of projects provided to the city for the upcoming week. A combination of MUB senior staff and MUB board members meet monthly at the city office with a combination of city senior staff and/or city council members. Attendance varies, but typically these are the attendees: Kim Hawes, Emily Mazzarelli, Damian Davis, and Ryan Simonton from the city, and Mike McNulty, Rich Rogers, and Jeff Ray from MUB. Often meetings include Mayor Saline, Deputy Mayor Trumbull, MUB Chair Straffus, and MUB Vice Chair Parsons. The following are the dates these meetings took place this calendar year: February 3rd, 2022, February 24th, March 16th, May 4th, June 8th, July 19th, August 31. The meetings are open-type meetings with no specific agenda. Topics will range from daily projects, progress reports, future plans, concerns, needs. MUB has the following internal communication directive, which is basically peer-to-peer. As needed, General Manager Mike McNulty communicates with City Manager Kim Hawes. This can be informal with a quick call, text, or email, or it can be formal with documented items. As needed, Assistant General Manager Rogers will communicate with Assistant City Manager Emily Mazzarelli or Damian Davis. Our engineering staff communicates with the city's engineering staff. MUB's communication staff communicates with the city's communication staff via social media, sharing things like ongoing events and to tag each other on their websites. If a higher level of communication is needed, MUB Chairman Straffus communicates with Mayor Jenny Saline. Deputy Mayor Trumbull has further stated, right now communication is nearly non-existent. My response would be, see the above. Deputy Mayor Trumbull stated during the, or after the meeting of the whole last week, that she would hope that MUB and the city could sit down and work through the ordinance over the next couple of weeks. However, when Mayor Saline was asked by myself at the MUB board meeting on September 30th, 2022, if MUB could have a communication meeting between MUB and the city prior to Tuesday, she replied, no. MUB has an opportunity to make a statement, and we, of course, are saying yes. Those are our thoughts on the communication side. A second change to the ordinance is the powers and duties. No project outside the ordinary course of business may proceed unless previously approved by resolution or ordinance of City Council, except as otherwise specified by rules or regulations adopted by City Council. A project outside the ordinary course of business shall be, and there was 4 different scenarios. Any project over $1 million. Not sure how this $1 million was determined. MUB research shows that there have been 25 or so MUB projects that exceed $1 million over the past 12 years. Some recent examples are Mountaintop Beverage, West Ridge Improvements, and University Town Center. Both based on the proposed ordinance, the City Council would need to approve these type of projects, which are all outside the city limits. Second scenario, accessing property owned, operated, or used by a public entity for public recreation. Besides the White Park controversy, the only incident of this kind we could locate would be MUB during the sanitary sewer project in Krebs Park in 2018. MUB records show all approvals with the city were accounted for on this project. Third, project that would require a certificate of convenience pursuant to West Virginia Code 24-211. It is the opinion of MUB Council that MUB is not subject to the PSC rules relative to issuance of certificate of convenience and necessity. And finally, which seems to be the most interesting, any project determined in the reasonable discretion of City Council to constitute a project outside of ordinary course of business when notification of such determination is made before construction begins. This provision seems broad enough to encompass every MUB project. How else will City Council determine if it's outside the ordinary course of business if not every MUB project is presented in detail to City Council, which again would include many projects outside the city limits? It is MUB Council's opinion that the only projects presently that MUB may consider outside the ordinary course of business would be projects that require the issuance of bonds, which already requires City Council approval. In the third change to the ordinance, property must be acquired in the name of the City of Morgantown, and such real estate will be held by the City of Morgantown for the benefit of the public. Any such real estate so acquired or encumbered shall be available for public use, not inconsistent with the operation of the water, sewer, and storm water service and discretion of City Council. Not sure of the purpose of this section. MUB has purchased numerous parcels of property within the past 20 years, all being proactive purchases as we review our future needs to support this community. And all these properties have been purchased using ratepayer dollars. Examples: Star City 84 Lumber. MUB purchased this property in 2017 during the negotiation stages of the Star City wastewater treatment plant. Due to the finite footprint at this facility, both a laydown area for construction and additional property was needed for future expansion of the plant. Cheat Lake Driving Range. This property was purchased in 2018 as the initial stages of the expansion of the Cheat Lake treatment plant was being analyzed and designed. Again, the present property footprint limited the expansion options, so the property was purchased with specific need. Dinsmore Tire, same. Purchased in 2019 as an option to expand the Morgantown water treatment plant. MUB purchases property as long-term plans are reviewed and designs show a potential lack of physical space. These are strategic purchases and are all for the long-term benefit of the community. And again, paid for with ratepayer dollars. So those are the three amendments to the ordinance that we want to bring attention to. However, we would also like to offer a few examples of why the MUB board is anxious over this ordinance and potential conflicts. In January of 2022, the city attorney was asked by the county commission to prepare an agreement between the city, county commission, and MUB with respect to the provision of $2 million in ARPA grant funds, $1 million from the city, $1 million from the county for the Pompano Run area flooding engineer work and construction. After 7 months of waiting for the agreement and numerous requests by MUB to the city for an explanation as to the reason for the delay in providing the agreement, in a meeting held at the City of Morgantown office on July 19th, 2022, Mayor Jenny Celine stated to MUB staff and a few board members in attendance that the city grant funds would not be provided to MUB unless and until an agreement was signed permitting recreation at Fleagle Dam and Reservoir. Now understand that from 2015 through the date this recreation agreement was signed in 2022, MUB staff, as per MUB board direction, was consistently relaying to the city that recreation would be allowed at the park with restrictions designed to ensure the water quality, which was the actual purpose of the dam, and recreation would be at no cost to MUB. Now also understand that once MUB heard this comment from Mayor Celine about holding up the Pompano Run project, a board decision was made to move this project forward with or without the city's funds. The project was deemed a high priority for the safety of our community. It is required and is our responsibility to do what is right to protect our ratepayers. This was not going to stop the project. Another example. City administrator, during a meeting at MUB's office, stated that anytime the MUB needs something from the city will leverage the request into obtaining something from MUB. These are some examples of why this board sees the potential conflict a city council member would have as a MUB board member. Or when Deputy Mayor Trumbull suggested in a meeting during negotiations related to White Park Trail Trees and Bridges that she would recommend invoking the section of the original White Park agreement that would force MUB to remove the newly installed water line if the agreement wasn't signed. Again, understand that at all times the MUB board position was that the original agreement signed between MUB and the city council we would agree to, and we agreed to what we agreed to. We never wavered from this. Question was brought up, is there a legal issue? Is there a legal question? Do any of these proposed changes have the potential to have a negative impact on our bond ratings? Keep in mind that the documents on which MUB bondholders relied in purchasing the bonds stated that MUB operates as an independent and autonomous agency of the city, funded entirely from the gross revenues of the combined utility system. The bond documents further state the municipal government structure in which MUB was created and continues to operate is designed to provide professional, apolitical oversight and management of the combined utility system. The board, while appointed by City Council, operates with near total autonomy. Now I would like to take a few minutes to discuss in public a comment made at the public portion of the MUB board meeting by Councilman Kwiecki that his perception that MUB needed to look to indeed make a better community and do things in a manner that will improve it, don't take some measurement, or what was done before and why should we do more. You should do as much as you can. We should approach it in a manner that will make this a better place to live. That's my expectations. As long as I don't perceive that as happening, I will continue to be disappointed and do my best to correct the circumstance. So let's take a few minutes and review some of the MUB's actions demonstrating our commitment to this community. Review the major infrastructure upgrades over the past 10 years. Water treatment plant, wastewater treatment plant, Flegel Dam Reservoir, $200 million, and still maintaining relatively low rates. All to better prepare MUB in this community for growth. MUB has worked hard on recent economic development issues and thinking outside the box for developments. Examples. At Mountaintop Beverage, MUB was instrumental in the EDA grant. MUB's coordination and participation in this grant made it the first grant received ever in Montague County. West Ridge and Milan Park developments, in numerous meetings with all parties to keep this project funded. County commissioners, local West Ridge developers, local Milan Park board members, state representatives, on how everyone can benefit from these projects, the community, the developers, most importantly, the community. I have an email from Mr. Butcher dated September 26, 2022, discussing this ordinance. His quote was, "I would also say that my constituents in 7th Ward have been clamoring for this change for quite some time after significant flooding. Will a city council member on the MUB board eliminate the two 100-plus year floods that were documented by downstream strategies that occurred in the general Morgantown area? But understand this, after those floods, MUB initiated a flood study plan signed off on May 16, 2022, presently being performed by Strand Engineering, presently being funded with MUB dollars. The reason for this study is due to a MUB board of directors deciding that MUB has a responsibility to our customers to protect their investments within reason. So we opted to look at our stormwater system through facts and flow design studies as to locate problem areas in the system so that proactive answers could be evaluated with cost and efficiency in mind. The study has been ongoing for 6 months, with a public meeting being scheduled for November 10th, 2022. This ordinance does not address communication. It addresses operation. Any perceived communication issue needs to be identified by the parties involved. Then, through communication, the issue can be resolved. Critical fact to remember, 62% of MUB's sewer customers reside outside of the city limits, and 55% of the water customers reside outside the city limits. There may be a better argument that MUB should become a regional utility versus a city utility. The MUB Board of Directors in this presentation have tried to demonstrate the MUB workings and how MUB strives to make this a better community. MUB works. Always ways to improve. This is not the way. Thank you.
Thank you. Morgantown City Council would like to address several inaccuracies and irresponsible narratives that are being made regarding the proposed ordinance to Article 169 of the Morgantown City Code. The proposed ordinance being considered by City Council will not disenfranchise ratepayers. The Morgantown Utility Board is a municipal utility of Morgantown. The utility services have extended beyond city limits as permitted by state law, but the board members have always been appointed by city council. It is incorrect to assume that there is a conflict of interest to have a city councilor on the MUB Board of Directors. A council member served on MUB for many years without issue. Again, MUB is a municipal utility system, and the claim that it has different general interests than a city that established it is clearly wrong. If there are any actual conflicts of interest that arise for any board member, state law provides a process to recuse themselves. I have had a couple different people helping me to compile this. If there happens to be an error in there, please let me know. But this is from across the state. So Charlestown has one council member on their utility board. Bub, which is I think is Bridgeport. One of three is the mayor. The Charleston Sanitary Board has 3 members. One is the mayor. Clarksburg has 5 members. One is the mayor. Moundsville, the sanitary board, let's see, the manager is the chair. The water board, the manager is a member and the mayor is an ex officio. Huntington has 3 members. The mayor is the chair of the sanitary board. Elkins, the mayor is part of the water board. Vienna, the chair of the utility board, is a member of city council. I think to be fair, Clarksburg has a completely different system that does not include that. Let's see. West Virginia state law requires Morgantown City Council to approve all projects outside the ordinary course of business. This proposed ordinance just defines the expectations for what is outside the ordinary course of business. It does not add any oversight authority. It is the same approval that used to be required from the Public Service Commission issuing a certificate of convenience and necessity. This does not add a layer of bureaucracy because this is the approval process required by state law. Real estate acquired for the utility system is already owned by the city. The proposed ordinance gives the board power to acquire real estate, power that was not in its authorizing ordinance before and which has caused a city and utility problems in the past, resulting in inefficiency with taxpayer monies. To say that this proposed ordinance is forced annexation is nothing more than a distraction and an attempt to hide the truth. The city continuing to own the real estate used for its utility system has nothing to do with annexation, and it doesn't make any additional city laws apply to any real estate. Bond counsel Steptoe and Johnson, which also serves as continuing disclosure counsel for Morgantown's utility system revenue bonds, reviewed the ordinance and found that nothing in the ordinance would violate the terms of our bond ordinances or general law. Making a public claim that this ordinance is in any way violates the terms of our bond ordinances is reckless and wrong. The truth is that this proposed ordinance does not violate bond documents. The intent of the proposed ordinance is to improve coordination, accountability, and communication between the Morgantown Utility Board and the City of Morgantown. City Code currently provides council oversight of MUB, and recent changes to state code have expanded this oversight by providing council with final approval for rate increases and construction projects. The city, which we already do rate increases, the city has a fiduciary and regulatory responsibility to its citizens to make sure that it is maximizing taxpayer dollars and enabling large construction projects. These changes accomplish these goals. I just wanted to make a couple of other brief comments. So it was super interesting to go through a timeline about the sewer replacement project at White Park, because the first thing that I knew about it was that at the end of the raw water line project, which is quite a while ago, there was some section of gravel left, and that was not explained at that time why that was there. And in fact, when asked to remove it, there was not an initial reaction of why it was there and that it did not, that it should not be removed for some purpose. It seems strange to know that a project is going on and just because it hasn't been sort of engineered yet, or it seems as though back and forth we should be able to admit that there's a project going on and exactly what it is and where the money's coming from, even if it's not finally done. And so I do understand our deputy mayor's comments, and although more recently there have been comments about it, particularly to our engineer and particularly finally telling people what was going on and how it was going to be funded, it never seems to come out like ahead of time, like before gravel is laid or as gravel is laid in White Park, and particularly White Park because people are sensitive to White Park. So although there is communication, it needs to be communication that is respectful, communication that happens early in the process so that we don't have issues later on. And that is the reason for this. And if some people think that that's not true, they can think that, but that is the reason. So anyway, I would like to give over to any kind of council questions or comments, and you can ask questions of our manager, questions of our attorney. Or maybe you're just exhausted like I am.
I think it's worth it to say that when we talk about what communication means, I don't know if communication was ever the right word to describe what we're trying to accomplish. Sending several emails, having several email chains, having meetings is not the same thing as productive communication between two organizations in which we work together to solve issues. Those are two separate things, right? I'd also like to acknowledge Tom's comments. And I think they're useful comments. I think that they're useful ideas. And I do worry about, in particular, what Tom had talked about in representing ratepayers, which I do believe, the appointments do that in terms of how we appoint people to the board now. But I don't think it's like a terribly outside of the box or outside of, I don't think it's a terrible compromise. I do wonder about the nature of approving the projects that are of that high dollar amount and what that would do to development. I hear that comment, and it's something that I hadn't considered before. And because those agreements can often be, we've seen in a lot of things that we try to do in the state and the county, that when we try to go for development and things, any kind of roadblock stays in the way. I just worry about that a little bit. And so I think it's worth exploring what that means. In terms, I wanted to move back quickly to productive communication. So I think the way that we see communication happening in these meetings is kind of like a perfect example of what I mean by productive communication. I can just speak to the comments that were presented that I spoke to, which were presented out of context. And so when we talk about like what is productive communication, saying that like the only reason I think this ordinance should exist is because we had flooding, it's because we as a neighborhood organization have tried to make sure that we are involved with MUB and like try to be involved in the flood study, and that as 7th Ward neighborhood organization, we have our stories heard and we feel like we're not being heard. That was the full context to those comments. And when they're presented in that way, then it doesn't give the full context, and I think that's emblematic of the kind of communication failures that we have and the kind of nature of how working together flows. So again, I don't think it's necessarily about communication. I think it's about fostering a working relationship that works instead of being antagonistic towards one another, like one that in which we have a good partnership, and and often we can't come to compromises on things, and often we butt heads on things, and that's why I don't think like it's probably not productive for us to sit here and like refute all the comments that were made, or try to like defend anything that we're trying to do, because I think what we really want in the end is for us to work with a utility board and make sure that we do everything that's best for our community. And like the utility board that is under our jurisdiction and that we govern, we should be able to like have useful meetings with and useful productive relationships. And I'll stop rambling, sorry.
I have a question, Mayor. I'd like to just, in general, ask our city attorney, with some of the proposed changes in this ordinance, to bring us as the overseer of a city utility in compliance with state law, not necessarily specifics, but just how this ordinance in general helps address some of the areas that may not currently be addressed.
The ordinance includes the council's specific role in rate setting as proposed, or as provided by West Virginia Code 24-2-4B, and it includes the city council's requirement as the governing body to approve projects outside the ordinary course of business as provided by 24-2-11, paragraph L. Those are both previously under the jurisdiction of the Public Service Commission until state law changes in 2017. Specifically, the certificate of convenience and necessity requirement was for the same language. It was for projects outside the ordinary course of business. There's a bit more full definition. It's a certificate is required for construction of any building, plant, pipeline facility other than those involved in the course of ordinary mainline extensions, something to that effect. But for utilities with 4,500 plus customers and excuse me, $3.5 million or more in annual revenue, the Public Service Commission is no longer required to issue those certificates. There's a specific notice process that requires the utility to place notice of the project in the customer bills, and publication notice to be presented in the local newspaper, and then for a resolution or ordinance of the governing body to be read and approved with 2 weeks intervening. So those are restated now in your ordinance. There are already requirements at state law, and the city and its utility system have to follow those no matter what, whether they're in the ordinance or not. The specific thresholds set for projects outside the ordinary course of business are in your discretion.
Thank you.
And state law has no kind of definition for what ordinary course of business is?
It's the holdover definition from the requirement to get certificates of convenience and necessity from the Public Service Commission is something like any construction except ordinary extensions to the system lines.
That's what I thought that it was. I'll just speak for a minute since I feel like most of the MUB chair's comments were directed at me. I never asked to be nor appointed myself as the city spokesperson for this particular ordinance, nor did I write the ordinance. I was approached after the last meeting and did an interview for WAJR, both on the radio and in print, but nothing in that article or interview was said that I did not say during the meeting. And I would like to point out that I never said that that was the first that I had heard of it. In fact, I did say I had heard of a sewer project in White Park. I do not recall it being brought up during the one meeting that I attended in August about the recreation at the dam. That was the first meeting with MUB that I had attended since a February or March meeting, I don't know, about something completely different in my recollection. But that being said, I think that there is a big difference between saying sewer project coming up, and actually giving details to the managers of that park. I am currently the chair of the Bow Park Board. The people who would need to approve such a project in a park. It is my understanding that that gravel road was constructed without approval. We still have not given approval, and I am not looking to stop that project. But as I think we all learned with our last foray into White Park, it is important to set expectations early and know exactly what we can expect out of each other, because even when we thought we did that with the water line and the trails, apparently there was a lot of confusion, which took a long time to get the trails approved, and we're about to get into that process with a bridge again. So I also think it's noteworthy that Mr. Straufus said that the only time that the second distinction for outside of the ordinary course of business, which is they would have to let us know ahead of time if they plan to do any work on city park property. That did happen in White Park, right? I was hiking on Easter of 2018 as a member of the Bow Park Board through White Park and noticed trees that were slated for removal because, as I believe Doug Smith, the assistant MUB manager at the time, said, oops, we thought that was our property. We forgot that it wasn't. So yes, having having a line in there that says that we need to be notified before any work is done in a park is not outside of, I think that that's very reasonable. I will say, I am in full agreement, I have always stated, I am in agreement of putting a city council member as a MUB board member. I have never indicated my being tied to the $1 million thing. In fact, I did say during that interview that I would be willing to sit down and talk to MUB. If $1 million is not outside of the ordinary course of business, I would love to have a conversation about that. And I'm sorry, I wasn't at the meeting. I watched the meeting. I did not attend the MUB board meeting last week. So if the mayor turned that down, that is not something that I was aware of. But I'm more than happy to discuss what MUB considers the ordinary course of business. I think that 1 million is probably a little low. I did not come up with that number. And I am more than happy to look at that and reconsider what we define as the ordinary course of business.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, if I may?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. I'm going to just briefly speak, I think, probably piggybacking somewhat on Councilor Butcher's comment about communication. I think it's not so much a matter of communication. Communication is not simply being told that something's going to be done. Communication, in this instance, I think what probably the better word for it would be a dialogue about what's going to be done. And I think that's where we are perhaps lacking. I am an admirer of MUB. I really think you do a wonderful job. Technically, you guys are the best, no doubt. And I'm proud that you're here, and I'm glad that you're here. But we've had our difficulties, and we need to address that. What we're talking about is an attitude, a perspective, and we dealt with this before when you heard me talk about community. Your approach, or this board's approach, has been from a ratepayer's point of view. Understandable to some degree. My approach is, and my concern is, for what is good for this community. And that community is a matter of dialogue. That community includes your ratepayers. That consideration needs to be part of what you do. And I'm sorry, Mr. Strathfish, if it doesn't appeal to your sensitivities. That's where I'm coming from, and that's why this particular situation we're in now, we're looking for a way to cure the problem. And right now, this is the solution that's being presented. Thank you.
Thank you. So anyone else? I wanted to say some comments moving forward. I also admire MUB and the hard work of MUB and have been at innumerable openings, tours, whenever there's an opportunity for us to be part of your organization. I think I have taken you up on it, as well as many other council people. MUB projects have, as far as I know, always been approved by this group. We may ask questions. There may be a dissenter, but we have always approved MUB projects. There's no need to stop any projects or be concerned about projects. A council person is on almost all the important boards that we have. We are part of the MMPO that includes people from all over this region and regularly approve projects that are outside of our specific jurisdiction. Bow Park, as you mentioned, has 2 council people on it, and what it means is when council has a question, there's somebody knowledgeable in our group who can say, you know, oh, this is what's going on. This is the next project. Oh, this is what MUB's up to, or let's make sure we take care of this because MUB's going to need that next month. It's really important that we have that representation and collaboration and dialogue. And I think it is, communication isn't just one way, which is what's happening right now because that's the format of this type of meeting. But it is an attitude, and we need to work on alignment and collaboration because things just are too contentious and take too long to take care of. So somehow we have to figure out a better way. So is there any other comments? Is there a motion? Is there anyone willing to make a motion?
I'll motion to move this forward. I wasn't sure if there was one.
I'll second.
Not yet. Thank you. If the clerk would please call the roll.
Oh, yeah, we can have additional discussion,
Pardon?
I guess.
We can, I think the question is, should we have additional discussion
Oh.
after the motion to move forward?
If anyone has additional discussion, please feel free.
Personally, I would feel more comfortable tabling the matter for now and reviewing some of the things we had spoken about. So I guess I would motion to table the matter, but.
Can I ask what specifically you were?
Both of the issues I had detailed and I believe what the
Representation was one?
was representation on the board and then Section F. I mean, I think both I and the deputy mayor had spoken about Section F.
I would second his table motion with the understanding that I am willing, able, and happy to meet with the MUB board to discuss. I fully, I love a good rule to follow. I really do. So I do think it is important to set expectations and a definition of what we would all agree to consider the normal course of business as tasked to us by the Public Service Commission. But I'm more than happy to have that conversation and would second the motion to table until that conversation is had.
I was wondering if we could work on passing this, but without that item in it, and then work on.
Without section F? Or,
And have that item trail.
but we did second the motion. I don't know if we need a roll call,
So you have to vote on
I
that?
believe.
We don't discuss a motion to
Well,
table?
Yeah, you're right, yeah.
Can I ask a question, Mayor?
Yes.
If we were to vote and pass it on a first read, we would have 2 weeks to amend a specific item like the definition of $1 million, correct?
Is that considered a significant change that would change it?
An ordinance can't have a material amendment on second reading. If you just want to change one subpart of a subsection, it's up to council to determine whether that's possible or not. And you can also amend the ordinance to omit that subpart as well, if you'd like to tonight.
If you omit that subpart, then that gives you, sometimes these discussions take a really long period of time. And so if you pull that out and work on that and then insert that back in at a later point, that would give us a month or two to figure it out, which it might take that.
I'm more comfortable with tabling.
I agree. I mean, for a couple of reasons, because, yeah, I would like to have further discussions with, just because I feel like I felt comfortable with this before, and I just feel like I've had more time to think about it, I've heard more perspectives on it, and it's not, I think that there's a lot of, useful things in here, but it's just that, I just would like to have more
So
discussion.
can we confine it to certain areas? I just would like to figure out what we are specifically doing. If it's just that item?
That and the build up of it, I think.
The
What?
composition, yeah.
That and the
Section
build
F
of
and the
board.
composition of the board.
The composition of the board.
Mm-hmm.
So we have
To
a
be fair-
city water board.
If you still would like to add a counselor, there's nothing in the current ordinance prohibiting that. When a position comes up at the end of October, you can still do that without changing the ordinance whatsoever. So if that is what your concern is,
I mean, I don't have to put a city council person on there if that's, I mean, it should be whatever the will of this group is. So if you all are retreating, speak now, because this is,
I am still comfortable with the ideas presented in the ordinance. I think the details need some work.
I agree.
so can we, okay, so if we're gonna agree on that, are we confining the details to certain issues? So it would be composition of the board?
Yeah.
Composition of the board,
In section
And-
F, which is the
section F.
construction project cost outside of normal rules of business.
All right, so we are tabling this with the instruction that, are we gonna meet whole board with whole board? How are we gonna do this?
I think that's a good idea.
I mean, that's
Yes.
fine with me.
Yes.
And for the record, I am totally willing to talk about any issue at any time with anybody. I'm a little bit irritated with some things, and that's why they got the response they got, because I don't think anybody should be surprised that we're to this point.
I agree with that, but
Okay. So, we're tabling for the purpose of looking at the composition of the board and section F,
We're voting on the table.
We'll vote on the table, yeah.
right?
We're voting on the table.
I know we're voting on the table.
Go, Kristen.
I'm just
But
trying
yes.
to establish what the table's for,
Yeah.
so that we have some specific
That's
direction and we
correct,
can move
Mayor.
forward.
Yeah, you're correct.
Okay. Okay.
That's what he wants.
Christine's wondering if she
If
should
you'd
call.
please, yes, we have first. Okay. If you call the roll.
Yes.
So just to be clear,
Yes.
a no vote means you don't want this table.
Correct, tabled, correct.
Yes, vote tables the thing.
Yeah.
No vote tables.
Yes.
No.
A yes vote.
A yes vote table.
A yes vote
and a no-
tables.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. We're clear.
Joe Buganum,
Yes?
Bill Koecki,
No.
Ixia Vega,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Trumbull,
Yes.
Dave Harshbarger,
No.
Brian Butcher,
Yes.
Mayor Celine.
No. So you tell us what that is.
4-3 to table.
This table. All right. There we go. We have tabled that. Now we'll move on to the next item.
No. Do we need to vote on the original motion?
Yeah.
Ah. So what the,
Vote on the original motion.
Because
it's tabled.
Okay. Because it's tabled.
Yeah, it's tabled. Consideration of approval of a resolution or authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the Monongalia County Commission for Animal Control Services. Yes. Can you all
We're
please,
still
we're
in
conducting
session.
business. You guys can go out in the hall if you like.
The city has contracted for many years for this animal control service with the county. This simply ups that renewal for another year. The details of it are that it's for 12 months. The total cost per year is $32,667. Let me just, I think some of you might be interested in how much business they do. I don't know.
Sure.
I don't know if you know how many animals we have to deal with around here.
No.
Just, let me go back to the month of June of this year. There were, the animal control officer dealt with 24 animal-related issues that she was called out on. In the month of July of this year, it was a total of 20. So over the course of a year, you're probably talking 250, 350 calls, depending on what's going on. And the question is that of benefit to the community? And it's my recommendation that it's certainly a lot cheaper than having our own dog warden and maintaining a facility for storing. So my recommendation is that we approve that contract.
Is there a
Move
motion?
to approve?
Thank you.
Just a quick
Any-
question.
Yes,
if I may.
please.
I think I saw in the ordinance that the dog warden is responsible for removing small dead animals.
Yes.
What, because this has come up before, what about deer? Who do we call if we have a dead deer in the road?
Large dead animals.
In the roads?
Yeah, if they get hit by a car and they're
'Cause
laying
they're
somewhere
Yeah.
near a road.
They're
Sometimes
smelly.
you have those that are hit and then end up going into somebody's yard. We've had that occur. But in the roads themselves, I believe our street crew does that.
Legal.
They may, I think generally people are advised to call the West Virginia Department of Natural Resources to address larger animals.
Sometimes they just dump lime on it.
And under certain circumstances, our city staff has done that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I did the cleanup on Don Knotts. It was real smelly.
All right, are there any other questions?
No.
Call question?
Joe Buganum,
Yes?
Bill Koecki,
Yes.
Ixia Vega,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Trumbull,
Yes.
Dave Harshbarger,
Yes.
Brian Butcher,
Yes.
Mayor Celine.
Yes. Passes unanimously. Consideration of approval of an authorization bill of sale, promissory note and lease for Emergency Responder Training Center.
Before I turn it over to our illustrious police chief, let me just give a general rundown of what this involves. Under this particular item, council will consider a proposal for the purchase of assets and lease of real property or space that is currently entitled Defense in Depth Facility. You all know where that's at in Saberton. The police chief, Eric Powell, has worked with the property owner, as has administrative staff, and our city attorney to try to help create the mechanism for establishing a state-of-the-art training center for the community's first responders. It will include the purchase of some state-of-the-art equipment that the city then would own. It also leases a total of about 20,000 square feet to offer for training for various, it's very diversified and can provide really extensive training for our first responders. That's just an overview. Chief, anything you want to add?
Yeah. Those are nice. Glad I could help you all out.
Well, now we're on to the important matters.
It was so important you made me put on a white shirt for 1967.
Exactly.
I tried to get him to wear his hat,
Right.
and he just wouldn't do it.
I wouldn't do it. It gives me a headache sometimes, so it squeezes my head. But anyway, just as City Manager Hawes was saying, this project has been something that I personally have been involved in since I was asked about 5 years ago by then Chief Preston to sort of start researching and looking into the possibility of us getting a dedicated training facility for our department. And that's how it started, was as a specific department-focused training facility. And a lot of things were the impetus of that, a reason for that. The fact that we were sharing a facility that was an outdoor facility that was quite a distance from, centralized, a central location within the city limits. We had to go all the way out to Indian Creek, and we had to work with schedules of other agencies in order to get our officers trained for a required in-service training in our firearms, a very important part of our training. And that happens twice a year, both for regular lighting and low light situations, but it's required by state mandate. And so there was always this struggle of scheduling. There's the additional costs that it entailed with having officers working off duty and coming to train. Just created logistical issues with us. And it's been that way for quite some time, for a long time. And that was a problem that we identified early on. It really has nothing to do with our anger or not getting along with the other agencies. It's just not practical for our purposes. So that sort of spurred the whole idea of this, something that was more local to us within the city limits that we could easily access, that guys could access while on duty, could go in, do whatever training they might need to do, and it not be so structured. They could do it while they're regularly working, so it wouldn't require any extra commitment to come in off duty and get paid overtime for training or additional time off to make up for that time. That's what started, and it sort of evolved over the years into sort of a multi-functional facility. We thought we should include the fire department because they were experiencing similar needs, and so the idea started, we started forming this idea that we should have a joint training facility for everybody. Well, we get to a point where things are found, we find locations and when we can't agree on like locality and we can't, and accessibility, and a lot of things sort of hampered what we were doing. We'd come up with the spot and the idea, and something would happen that kind of caused it to go to the wayside. Well, fast forward to a month after I become chief. Mark Nesselrode approaches me and he says, "Hey, I understand you guys are trying to do this
training facility thing. And I said, yeah. And he said, well, what if I were to say that the possibility exists that Defense in Depth, this company that I'm operating in the building that I own, I'm thinking about, you know, getting out of that business. And would the police department be interested in pursuing this? And my eyes got like that big. I said, are you kidding me? Now, I don't know if you've ever been in this facility, but it is a state-of-the-art indoor firing range and training facility already in place. If we have the opportunity to move into this location, very little additional work would have to go into making it operational. It is operational right now. And another nice thing about it is there are already training tools within the facility itself that comes with the facility that are also state-of-the-art. I mean, the best you can find. Simulation, scenario-based simulation, virtual reality training, along with the firing range, which, you know, it's 16 bays. The ventilation system is state-of-the-art. The targeting system is state-of-the-art. Everything was done right in this facility to begin with. It's got a mat room. It's got a training facility as far as for classes, large classroom sizes. So it had everything that we wanted. And I think we started talking about the possibilities, and the possibilities are what makes it so exciting as far as I'm concerned, because you have so many things that this can have a positive impact on as it pertains to public safety in general. And there's a piece that involves public relations or community outreach. There's a piece that involves just the quality of training that the police officers and the frequency of the police officers. And I think a cornerstone to any good police department is its training. It's its personnel, and then it's its training. High quality training produces high quality officers, which produce high quality results when they're dealing with the things they're having to deal with, and positive results. So the importance of it from a public safety aspect is it's almost something you can't put a dollar amount on, value-wise. That being said, I think the possibility exists for this facility to not necessarily break even with respect to what it can generate revenue-wise. There are already contracts in place with it that we can continue to maintain. So there are other agencies that utilize the facility to keep up their own training needs. We could host our own classes with our professionals that are trainers, which would obviously generate a bit of revenue, as well as provide a little bit of revenue to the surrounding businesses, including hotels and restaurants and other things for overnight, multiple day training. So there's lots of pieces to this. With the community outreach, I'm envisioning the ability to actually hold classes such as Stop the Bleed classes. So a colleague over there, Forrest, his Mon County EMS would have access to use of the facility. Maybe we might ask him, hey, would you be willing to come in and host a class, maybe have some of our officers attend, as well as members of the community attend, and sort of build that mutual kind of aid and kind of trust and working together to sort of provide information to the community that's useful. And self-defense courses, gun safety courses. These are all the things that we can offer the community through this facility and be proud of what we're doing and have someone come in and say, hey, this is top notch. I mean, this is high speed, this is nice. I can tell you this. I know of at least 6 other chiefs. I just came back from a Chiefs of Police conference down in Glade Springs over the weekend, and at least 6 of those people are talking about doing something similar, and their frustration has to do with funding and just being able to get it started from the get-go. And that was one of our drawbacks in building from the ground up that we found how it's just ungodly expensive, $10 to $30 million to build from the ground up a similar facility. So thank goodness Mark Nesselrode is such an easy guy to work with. I mean, he's been extremely understanding, and he's been extremely helpful, and I don't want to, just cooperative in the agreement, and willing to really work with the city and with everybody involved to make sure this happens. I think he's coming from a genuine desire to provide something that's useful for the community. So, I mean, maybe I'm a bad salesman, maybe I'm jumping around, but I can tell you this, that this kind of facility is a game changer. It can have an extremely positive impact with the problem we're having in recruiting, because no place else has it. I mean, you can literally not find another place in the state that has a facility like this at this quality. And that will draw people that are interested in pursuing this as a profession when they see something like that, because it shows there's a commitment to that. The quality of training is important, and that's important to people that want to pursue a career in law enforcement, because that goes towards safety and that goes towards the quality of the officer they become. And they know that and they understand that. So recruitment, I think, it's not going to happen instantaneously, but I think over a short period of time, you're going to find that it's going to affect our numbers with respect to our, both our recruiting and our retention. I think whenever we get the program in place, which I've already sort of got the ideas, we've already got staffing ideas in place with guys that we have, and we'd like to combine them with people that are already working there to sort of add to the working knowledge of how they're already operating, so it can be sort of a seamless transition. So we'd be bringing on a couple of new civilians to the police department, but they'd be working in conjunction with my staff members, who would be our lieutenant, who's in charge of training. That's all he does. He'd be located out there and basically be running the place. And our armorer, who obviously has a vested interest in the place because of his work with our firearms. So I think I'm very excited about the chance and the opportunity. I truly believe, and I have from the beginning, that this is sort of one of those things that doesn't come around very often. This is like an opportunity that I think you're not going to see again. I mean, it's a rare thing to happen, and I'm thankful for it. I'm just thankful too that I was the one that was around when it came about happening. So, if anybody has any questions, I'll be more than glad to answer.
Move to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And you can still ask questions.
Yeah, I just had a few questions. Yeah. So just from a financial cost, so that's $240,000 a year for rent.
Correct.
The $500,000 for the equipment, and well, we're down staff obviously in police, but we'd be adding a few civilian positions. How much offset do you anticipate maybe we'd be able to bring in with bringing in some of the different programs, outside agencies for
Well, when I
training?
Now, keep in mind, this was like in January of this year that I put this stuff together, but so I did sort of a general breakdown of what sort of is already taking place there, and we can assume some of that costs to us. So right now, the revenue that place produces just on lead mining is about $12,000 to $13,000 a year. Now, what lead mining is all the waste that comes from firing guns, the lead in the air filters, the brass that falls on the floor, the spent ammunition. All of that is collected by a company who pays us for it, and then they recycle it. So all that stuff is a contract that actually exists with a company right now with Defense in Depth. We'd just be assuming that contract. The contracted use, and this is people that are just using the facility usually for work-related purposes, sometimes recreational. We may have to met that out a little, But right now, it's generating about $130,000 annually. That probably would go down a little bit once we took over, but I don't know by how much. We estimated the annual revenue for our own hosting of in-service training for other agencies to be about $72,000 a year. And that's actually a conservative estimate. That's just based on the going rates at the time we looked at these numbers for classes, the average attendance of those classes, and the length of time of those classes all play into that. So we have our own subject matter experts that can put on high-quality in-service courses that other people will come to because they're that respected in their field of expertise. So that's actually conservative. That was put together by my training lieutenant. And then you have sort of the savings that having a facility like this creates with just respect for like overtime and things like that. That comes to about $12,000 a year just in saving the driving expense to go to places, to other places to receive in service. So we kind of projected an estimate about $2,000 to $3,000 for community stuff, and that's like at a really minimal low rate of like maybe $3 to $5 to have someone come in, and maybe that can go away and just be free. I mean, that's just something we threw in there. But so, you know, when it I didn't do the annual costs, you know, I was told about, you know, you get your utilities to add to that $240,000, which is about $38,800, $900 for the cost of the utilities. Let me see if I have where I've broken it down.
Annually, Chief?
Yeah, annually.
Okay. Just clarify.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I did another cost analysis of all the equipment. The equipment alone probably valued at almost $2 million that's coming with the facility. And that's an overtime kind of thing, which was a nice thing to have happen. I didn't actually break down the totals.
Chief, are you anticipating that the public will still have access to this?
Yeah, I mean, to a degree. I would say that once we get together with the people working there already that actually built those contracts and have the people that are coming in, we'll probably have a better idea what the scheduling is. And that'll be an issue. We'll have to figure out the scheduling. But the idea is to have scheduled events there for the community. I don't necessarily think it's wise to have it open, like have an open door policy per se for just anybody to come in and use the facility. And my idea is to have someone present there at all times, so that at all operating hours times, so that there's that security aspect that where people can't just access it. I wouldn't want people, it's too much of a liability issue there. But yeah, I mean, I would open it up to the public, and I would, as long as it was scheduled, sure, access would be granted, just like it would any other public building, public facility.
Yes.
A couple things. By approving this, Ryan, what is council committing to?
The basic proposal is an initial $500,000 payment for purchase of equipment, which the city is proposing be made with local fiscal recovery funds that are available for that purpose. There is a promissory note in the total amount of $1.5 million representing the total value of the equipment that would be transferred. When a $500,000 payment is made by the city and a 10-year lease term is completed without default, the remaining $1 million of that promissory note would be forgiven by the seller/lessor here. The city does have an obligation to pursue grant funding up to the amount of $500,000 over the lease term to fund the purchase of those other assets. And if it's successful in receiving those grant funds, then they'll be transferred to the seller, and the title to the assets are transferred to the city. The lease that's proposed to council is a 10-year, $20,000 per month lease for the 19,938 or so square foot facility.
So the only obligation city has besides the operational costs for 10 years, right, is a $500,000 purchase towards the equipment.
That's correct.
Internally, we've done a lot of discussion about it. Certainly, there are some funds available from the existing ARPA dollars. This certainly meets the requirements of the original intent of ARPA in terms of the impact on COVID and law enforcement and all that. But that's an option council has outside of drawing down from the city's general fund to do that. You could utilize the funds from the first round of ARPA. This fall, we've got to kind of be talking about that second round and what we want to do with it, and we'll give you an accounting on that. But there are funds available for that one-time purchase if we want to do it.
Can I ask a question as a follow-up to that?
Sure.
We are obligated to seek the grant funds. If we are unsuccessful, what happens to that?
I made that really clear with Mr. Nesselrode. I said, you understand that most grant funds occur, you go after them, then do the project. The likelihood of getting grant funds for a deal that's already been done is very unlikely, and he understands that.
So are
made
we
that
then
very clear.
obligated
No,
to?
We are not. We will provide a good faith effort to generate some grant funds for that other $500,000. We're not obligated to do it, though.
That's correct. The forgiveness of the remaining $1 million on the promissory note is contingent only upon the payment of the initial $500,000 purchase price and the completion of the lease term. There's no contingency for receipt of any of the grant funds that the city will pursue.
Good deal.
Good question.
You had mentioned fire. How would the fire department utilize this facility?
Well, they also perform, I mean, they do a lot of training, and I'm actually considering consolidating our weight room, moving our weight room to a larger space in that facility. They do a lot of training with respect to care, I don't know, can you help me with that, Forrest? I don't know what those fire guys do, but I know they do a lot of stuff that involve, rescuing people and stuff like that. So I think, and there's a lot of physical fitness involved. And I know I've been to one fire station, I think it was Norwood, and they've just got all their weight equipment like out in the middle of the floor. I mean, it's like right next to where they're parking their fire trucks and stuff.
That's the next thing, depending on what council we talked this week at our weekly staff meeting about the two chiefs getting together and determining how it can be co-utilized. There's a second floor that the police department's planning on using for breaching.
Yeah, it's
training. But I can also visualize that could be utilized by the fire department for various options also. The other is there's a very large area, something we really don't have in the city, a real large open area that's currently retail that could be available for large-scale training, for a training facility that I think will be utilized by a lot of our departments.
Yeah, there's a lot of space that currently, just right as you enter the facility, is once the display cases and things are removed, it's just going to be a very large, wide open space. And that could even be eventually, partitioned off if need be, because there's that much space there. But even leaving it an open space, there's a lot of possibilities there with respect to training.
We're going to try to set up, we talked about setting up a time where members of council would like to, and members of executive staff can go by first part of next week sometime and just go in and just see the whole thing. I think you'll be really impressed. But so be prepared and maybe send us some dates that you can't do it next week so we can try to work around it.
So maybe early in the morning.
What I would, yes, we were looking at Wednesday at 8 or something.
I think that was what was offered.
Yeah,
It was some early in the morning
Wednesday at 8, I believe,
times.
is one of the dates we talked about.
Okay. Madam Mayor,
Yes.
if I may, I'm curious to know, given the circumstance that we face now with our police department, and their attitudes. What's your perception of this idea? How will it be received among them as opposed to some other activities that we might
Well,
initiate?
I think the vast majority of the officers are very appreciative of it. I think there are a few that are skeptical of it and maybe have, you know, you're always going to have a few that are sort of wishy-washy about things. I think, though, generally speaking, I just informed my department yesterday that this was happening because Mark had requested that we kind of keep it quiet until he knew for sure things were moving forward so that he could tell his employees. And so that I did. I didn't get any feedback very much from anybody specifically about it. But I know the guys that knew about it well in advance, the handful of people that I trusted to tell this to, and sort of, which included the range master and you know, the guys that really had a vested interest in it, they're stoked. They're really, really, really excited about it. And it's been my experience that when there are people that are really passionate about something, even if it's just a handful in a large group, sometimes it spreads, you know, if they really believe in something. So even if there are a few people that sort of are still having that negative attitude and things, I think that the positive, I don't know how you could look at this in anything but a positive way. I mean, I just don't see the downside to it, and I don't see how anyone else could. And if I found someone that felt that way, I'd talk to them for a while, because I'm excited about it, and I think, I mean, because it just benefits everyone all around. I mean, it's a win all around, and so that's the long answer to that question. I can't guarantee that it's going to cure whatever morale issues exist. It's not, you know, that'd be silly to think that, but I think it will go a long way to moving forward and fixing and mending some things.
I'm not looking for the cure, but I'm not looking to aggravate this.
Oh, I don't think that will be the case. I don't think it'll make anyone more upset or angry or disenfranchised, or whatever word you would.
I recognize this as an opportunity that just simply, you know, it's as you suggest, unusual and once in a lifetime, just sort of falls in my lap.
Yeah,
and I know that you've been looking over, even through Chief Preston in the past, had been concerned about this activity.
Yeah.
I really very much like the idea of supporting the police department with appropriate facilities, equipment, whatever is necessary. My concern is the cost. My concern is the additional personnel. And I have to confess a bit, I am concerned that it be perceived as being, that we are more concerned with providing them with things that serve our needs as opposed to things that serve their individual needs.
Are you talking to this about the citizens' perceptions
No,
or the officers' perceptions?
I'm talking about the officers. I'm talking about their
I don't know
morale.
how you avoid people. I mean, I don't know how you avoid people, that thought process. If you have people that are leaning towards that way of thinking, it's going to be difficult no matter what you do to sort of sway that. But you know, when you get down to the bare bones of it, it's a positive thing for everybody. It's something that's going to make the department a better place. It's something that's going to make the city a better place. And it's something that's going to help foster a positive relationship. It has that potential to, if it's done right, to foster a better working relationship and understanding between members of the community. And even though, you know, I know it's a gun range and guns are bad for a lot of people, but I still think connections can be made in environment that are positive and useful and are constructive. I mean, it doesn't have to be all about the gun range. It can be about things like Stop the Bleed, and it can be about things like basic first aid, and it can be about things like basic gun safety, self-defense. You know, all those things can come out of that, and the interactions they have with the officers, much like interactions that school resource officers have with children, help to sort of disavow some of the maybe negative stuff they may be being fed or think about police officers, to make them view them in more of a humanistic light and maybe more approachable and maybe easier as people, as human beings. And I think that's important. So, you know, there's just a lot of things great that can come out of it, and I struggle to think of anything negative, to be honest with you. I can't think of anything negative. Maybe perceptions, but I am not in the. I'm a police chief, and perceptions are something I don't have. I've long since given up on controlling those.
Well, you've given me some opportunity to at least express my concerns.
Yeah, oh yeah, I appreciate it. I understand. Trust me, I understand. I know. Because I walk in that office every day and I'm dealing with something, you know. And it's, sometimes it's small, sometimes it's big, sometimes, you know, I've got to do something about it. Sometimes I just got to let it lay and understand, pick my battles and move forward. That's what I'm trying to do. Pick my battles and move forward.
One final question. So, do we have a general timeline? Should we approve this month? Do we have a?
I think at the request of Mark, he was wanting it done as quickly as possible.
Prior to the end of the year for various reasons.
Yeah, he's needing to
Pretty
sell.
fast turnaround.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
quick-
yeah, he needs
quick
to
turn.
sell his inventory before a certain time and be out.
Mayor, if I may. I would just, I guess, to reiterate what Bill's saying and to kind of, I guess, get a clearer understanding. It's just, I guess I wonder, and I maybe this is the perception we're talking about, is the investment in this sort of facility when we do have public employees who are feeling that they're not paid appropriately. Like, I think that's the perception Bill's, at least that's what I take from that, right? Is like, we have people that work for us and in your department and then others that are expressing concern about where their pay is at. And then when we spend this kind of money, you know what I mean, for 10 years, monthly, when they feel that they're not being duly compensated, I feel that could cause some issues, and I think it's in some respects a legitimate concern too. And so I guess my question would be, do you feel that like this is one of the most efficient uses we have of recruitment and retention for our officers, or do you think that with this same money that there might be more efficient ways that we could go about doing that? And is that something we should explore in addition or instead of?
I'll say this about recruitment. There's only, at this point in time, I'm not sure of anybody who is in any department anywhere that feels their recruitment strategy is effective. It's not working for anyone. And everything that we're doing right now or already have done with respect to our recruitment strategy is pretty much what is the recommended procedures, the things we should be doing. Creating an updated website, contacting recruits, following up with those recruits, constantly feeding them information, accessibility to application process, accessibility to the test, frequency of tests. There are so many parts that have already been implemented with respect to just trying to get people to apply to the job. I don't know much more that we can do. I mean, but this is something that will feed into that. I mean, like I said, it's not a magic bullet. And when I say I pick my own battles, I honestly do not have any control over their salaries. I mean, I can't speak to that, and I can't speak to their frustration because, you know, I can do my best to explain the salary structure and how it's not as bad as they are, but at the end of the day, that's a hard sell to anyone. And so, you know, I do my best, but I move forward. I pick my battles, the ones that I can control. This is something I can control. This is something I'm invested in and believe in, and that's all I can do. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
I think a well-trained officer in all aspects of training, so the safety training you're talking about, the training in shooting, training in all the aspects. If people are going to carry firearms, you would like them to be very well trained. That is one of our goals.
That's the goal, yeah.
So I'm appreciative that you have worked on this so long and hard.
No, it's no
Many
problem.
meetings and phone calls.
Yeah, yeah.
And that there's been a good result to right now, and also that funds that are used for salaries and personnel are kind of one part of a budget, and another part of a budget is buildings and maintenance and leases and other parts of a budget, and you sort of have to keep budgets in balance and departments in balance with having both salaries that are appropriate and training, equipment, and purchases. So I can see people being upset if they feel upset about their salary, but I think also we need to sort of provide balance as far as having appropriate equipment and training opportunities equally with making sure that people have appropriate pay.
I think that I've seen in the past where the lack of one or the other causes the same kind of disenfranchisement. I've seen places where they don't have the equipment. They might have competitive pay, but they don't have the newer radios, the newer vehicles. They don't have the training opportunities that we have, and that feeds in not as much, but it does have an impact on morale as well and enthusiasm about, I think when opportunities are there for training and when officers sort of recognize, and I think it's a subconscious thing, that there's that commitment to quality of training, I think that helps. I mean, I think that helps buffer a little bit whatever, apprehension you're having in another aspect. And I think they separate the two in their minds. I think if you lack one, and it's important to be well balanced,
Both.
definitely, yeah.
And I would just add, spending my career in healthcare, kind of the same issue. You build a facility, you need the facility, you're dealing with wages, you got to pay people to have them come. But if
Right.
you're not building the facility that you need, Children's Hospital, that does so much for morale and recruitment too.
Oh,
that
yeah.
You've got to have the facility to take
Yeah,
care of the people.
I really believe that it will help a recruitment. I really do. And I think there's a pool of people out there, okay, that our department is trying to pull from, but so is every other department. So we're all competing. And when everybody had this money available to them, some of them put them into trying to attract through salaries officers, and it kind of left us in the lurch of trying to catch up, which we're trying to do now. And I understand that, but this gives us something nobody else has, and no one will be able to have. That's another thing to think about. Most departments 5-10 years out from this being even able to put something like this into effect. I know Clarksburg, I think, or Harrison County. They're trying, they're having difficulty getting the grant funding, and I don't think it's gonna be anywhere near like this place. I mean, once they get it done, it's not gonna be. So I'm really stoked about it. I think it's gonna be awesome. I really think it's gonna be great for the city, for the department, for other departments. It'll just be a wonderful, wonderful thing.
All right. Would you call the roll?
Joe Buganem,
Yes.
Bill Koecki,
Yes.
Ixia Vega,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Trumbull,
Yes.
Dave Harshbarger,
Yes.
Brian Butcher,
Yes.
Mayor Celine.
Yes, passes unanimously.
The white shirt worked.
It did, and you didn't even have to have the hat.
Right. I have that.
All right.
Get myself ahead of it.
City managers report.
In the interest of, I have a slew of things to talk about, but I think what I'll do is put those in writing tomorrow to council. Let me just a couple quick ones. The sidewalk project that we've been talking about, staff has narrowed those projects down to 4 or 5 that will be presented this committee of the whole this month for discussion. You'll be able to give input. Maybe there's some that are higher priority to your neighborhoods. The second one is that we received the results of the GovHR survey today, and we had a meeting with Joe Ellen of GovHR on it. We intend that.
Pardon, I can't quite hear you. Could you guys go out in the hall?
GovHR submitted their preliminary report today. We're hoping that sometime next week we'll have a really good idea how we want to implement it. We're not just on the surface. There are several areas that we're probably down on that we need to adjust, but by and large, the salaries within the police department are, as Bill would say, at a very competitive level. So it's really the very bottom salary, the entry level area that we need to focus on. That will drive recruitment too. And we'll bring you up to date on that. Just wanted to make sure you understood that Monday is a holiday and that the city offices will be closed. And the bids for the construction for City Hall will be opened on October 11th.
Wow.
The other items I'll put in writing to you tomorrow if that works.
Thank you. All right. City clerk.
Yes, Mayor. The Police Civil Service Commission will be holding their entry-level police officer exam on Saturday, October 22nd at 9 a.m. in the Public Safety Building. So applications are being received, and folks can access information about entry-level police officer positions on our website at morgantownwv.gov. There's also the ability to apply online, and that is a lights-out process, and it'll come right to the city clerk's office, and then we'll reach out to that applicant once we have the information. I want to share that last year the Police Civil Service Commission approved resources, kind of like a study aid for candidates, and that is at no cost to the applicants. And so I do feel that is working. We're able to reach back out to the testing company and see which candidates actually access the online resources, and so I just think that's another recruiting tool that the Police Civil Service Commission has approved. Also, folks can reach out to our to the city clerk's office if they have any questions. On September 14th, the Fire Civil Service Commission held their fire captain promotional exam, and I'm honored to share that after that September 14th fire captain promotional exam, that Jason Quinn was promoted to fire captain. So congratulations to Captain Quinn. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. City Attorney?
Thank you, Mayor. We did a special litter prevention officer training today. There's a provision of state law that allows non-police officers to issue citations for litter, and city code designates members of our code enforcement department as those officers, as well as parking authority officers. They're required to undergo a training about municipal citation procedures before they can exercise that authority. So there were 4 new employees of the code enforcement department who underwent that training today. We also had one of the deputy fire marshals join us. We covered citation procedures, permissive entry and obtaining search warrants for entry, and just generally walked through their new citation authority. I thought that was really helpful. Our building official, Drew Cantus, joined us and helped give them the benefit of his experience in that training. Second thing to mention, the vacant structures ordinance update was on your committee of the whole meeting and is not on your regular meeting today. I spoke with the Development Services Director and the building official who mainly implement that ordinance and have a couple items to review regarding the proposed changes to council, and should have that back before you on an agenda shortly. That's all I have to report this evening.
Thank you very much. Now we're to City Council. Joe Abu.
Yeah. One thing I said I wanted to do when I started was to help get the youth involved and in city government. And this past weekend, you were there. Myself and Mayor Celine were able to plant 3 lovely trees around Morgantown. We had 2 Morgantown High students, Hayden and Allie, participate with us. They got volunteer hours, and we were able to have their educational experience go towards maintaining our Tree City USA status. And then I wanted to say thank you to the students today, Aaron, Colin, and Ashley, for presentations of all the things going on around Morgantown High. I was actually looking forward to their presentation, especially since public education and community go hand in hand. And as you saw, many of our high school students participating, organizing, and getting involved in a bunch of the activities, great activities outside our classroom, as well as I'd like to mention the homecoming parade is on October 20th, which is also the same time as our Municipal Week. And for those watching at home, First Ward will be hosting the neighborhood meeting Monday, October 24th, and I wanted to make sure to remind everybody that as well. And that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was going to pass, but there are a couple things that I should talk about. It's really nice to see the high school kids today, and their presentation was very good. Congratulations. Please pass that along from
Absolutely.
as you talk with them. They did a wonderful job. So that was very nice to see, and hopeful in terms of who we might look forward to in the future to be our leaders. Also, too, just on a lighter note, SPAN is having a history walk on the 16th of this month. They'll meet at Eaton Park, which is the corner of Park Street and Morris, that green space that's called Eaton Park, at 2 o'clock. And it's a self-guided walk through historic South Park. And I think there's one building, one house that there's the possibility of going inside and looking at some of the detailing and the restoration that's being done there. As I get more detail on that, I'd be happy to share that. Hopefully that will be announced on our webpage, our Facebook page, and broadly distributed. With that, I think I'll end. I've had more than enough for today. Thank you.
Stop it while you're gone. Bill. All right. Counselor Vega.
I want to start off with saying that there have been a couple of questions of the things that are going on at the old school in Wild Hill. So I am here to provide some answers. And if you have any questions, please feel free to email info@beaupark.org. But there's been questions about some of the park material, the old school, making sure that the historic preservation of it is still on par. And I want to update folks on some ways that they can get more information on the things that are going on at the park. Beau Park has done a really great job of updating their website to all questions that folks may have of the park. I also want to reiterate that nothing of historic value has been removed from the old school. So there's no need to worry about that part. The folks at Beau Park are making sure that the historic value of the school remains there. And I also wanted to invite some folks to their meeting. They have a meeting on October 12th at 3 p.m. at the Wiles Hills School. So if you have any questions that you want to ask or any statements that you want to make, please feel free to join. And I also want to remind folks that it is open from Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. if you ever want to walk in, check it out, ask some questions, and see the projects that have been going on there. On another note, the International Street Festival is this Saturday at 11 a.m. on High Street. The folks at the Sister Cities Commission are inviting everybody to join us and see all of the great international fun that we have going on. Liz Finkley and George Lease have organized for musicians from Columbia to come. So if you want to listen to some cool music, make your way over to High Street. And I also wanted to thank the high school students for coming. I specifically wanted to thank Conan Maroquin for coming and talking about the health and wellness group. The health and wellness group at MHS is working on this project that Conan had mentioned before to get period products and other hygiene items such as socks and toothbrushes, toothpaste in other lockers in Morgantown High School. She mentioned before that they did have a period of giving, and they're going to be having one again this year. So during the holidays, if you're feeling inclined to give to our MHS students, please feel free to do so. They'll have an Amazon wish list going up soon, so folks can donate there. But it's really important because while students may be able to get period products at school, they can't always get period products at home. So if we're able to give folks a way to get the things that they need free and without embarrassment, I think that it's a win. And I love it that it's coming from our young people. And that will conclude my report.
Thank you.
Me?
Deputy Mayor.
I'm very excited about
Trumbull.
these litter control officers. If someone gave me the ability to write a citation for litter, we would be so clean. But since I don't have that ability, I'll just continue cleaning it up
Maybe you
myself.
could give the pep talk.
Yeah, invite me to the next training. It'll be great. I had the opportunity to attend the first meeting of the second class, I guess, of the Morgantown Citizens Academy, along with Councilor Kowecki last Thursday. I can't say enough good things about that program, so I do hope some other counselors will make some time to stop in to those on various Thursday evenings. I believe we were all sent the schedule of where they'll be. If you're gonna go to the one at the garage, let them know. They'll print out your name for a street sign. Other than that, I'm with Councilor Kowecki. I'm just gonna keep it kind of light. I have a few upcoming events. The Hope Hill Sobering Center, hallelujah, will be having a ribbon cutting ceremony this Thursday at 11 a.m. We will also be there until 1 p.m. for tours for the community or anyone who wants to come in and take a look around. I hope some folks will join in on that. It is going to be a very beneficial addition to the community, I feel. That thing that I mentioned a couple of weeks ago didn't happen, but it is happening this week. The farmers market ribbon cutting was rescheduled. It is now going to be this Saturday at 8 a.m. at the farmers market pavilion. I think at 8:15 there's going to be a very brief little ribbon cutting ceremony. From 8 to 10 there are some musicians and cupcakes or something available, so it'll be a nice little addition to other things going on downtown that day. I hope people will stop by. International Street, Ixia already spoke about the International Streets Festival. Arts Walk is happening it's the last Arts Walk of the season with Main Street. It is going to be a Friday evening Arts Walk for October. It'll be on Friday, October 14th from 6 to 9 p.m. Come down, visit the businesses and the vendors. The evening one always seems to be very, very popular, and that's Fall Family Weekend, I do believe, so it should be well attended. Main Street's also hosting Hops on the Mon, a local beer festival that shuts down parts of High Street on Saturday, October 15th from 3 to 7. So if you're a fan of beer, you should buy tickets to go to that. And if you're not a fan of beer, plan to avoid downtown because the street's going to be closed. Other than that, the Woodburn Association of Neighbors has its regularly scheduled quarterly meeting. It's 7 p.m. on Wednesday, October 19th. We will have another meeting of council before then, but I'll mention it now so you can get it on your calendar if you're interested in coming. Wednesday, October 19th at 7. I'm good.
Thanks. Councilor Ashburger.
Thank you. I would just like to raise awareness of my concern about Amendment 2 and just bring that up, that has the potential to take a lot of revenue out of our area, direct it to Charleston, and potentially impact a lot of our infrastructure around schools, parks, transit, library, police, fire. If that passes, it takes that control from our local government areas and places it in Charleston without a clear mechanism on how we try and get it back. So I just wanted to keep that awareness out there as we come up on the next election.
Is there a way to get signs? No on 2?
We need to make, we need to.
Well, if anybody hears, tell the rest of us.
Tell the Center on Budget and Policy to make those.
No on 2.
That's all. Just
Thank
that.
you. Didn't mean to interrupt.
No.
Just got all excited about it. All right, Councilor Butcher.
Thank you for that, Dave. Yes, we don't talk about Amendment 2 or 4 enough. We should oppose them. So we had, as part of the liaison to the Human Rights Commission, we had our first racial equity strategic plan meeting. So the idea with this is for this committee to develop a racial equity strategic plan that would then be presented to the HRC, that would then be presented to council, and it would.
Do we have one? Or is this an update?
This would be like specifically targeted towards like the development of racial equity, and I know that like some of those goals are in our strategic plan, but this would be like everything that would be required. This would also so just like the formation of the kind of policies that would be needed in this would require an audit of past legislation in order to like racially target any kind of policies. Otherwise, it could be illegal and injuncted upon because it's racially targeted. So that's part of like what we're working on to like present to council, but just like community ideas on how we can present a racial equity plan. We have another one of those committee meetings coming up this Thursday. If anybody would like to attend, it is at 6:30, I believe, but I don't want to say the wrong thing. 6 o'clock via Zoom. And that is just a committee meeting. And we've had a few people attend so far, but yeah, so there's that. I spent last week in Atlanta. I like Atlanta. It's a very pretty city. It's a cool place to get ideas about infrastructure. and parks. They have
Big
some
Central Park.
really nice parks. I was staying in a hotel that was right next to the huge aquarium.
I was gonna say, an aquarium.
Mm-hmm. The enormous aquarium there, and then they have like the Coke bottling plant, and then right in the back is Human Rights and Racial Justice Museum, which is back there, and we checked that out too. But the reason I was there was for a housing fellowship. This is like a sort of development of policy ideas with people across the nation on housing. There were people from like Eastern Kentucky, Louisiana, New York, a lot of people from Baltimore, Florida, which was problematic at the time because some people had family that were in the path of the hurricane. But lots of cool ideas that came out of that, but it's specifically how we can interact with the law and lawyers in order to affect housing policy. So that'll be going on for like a year, but it was a cool thing to be a part of. Morgantown Pride's Homecoming Out, which is for high school students, like a dance, but hosted by Pride, will be at First Presbyterian, October 16th. And again, we had already mentioned the another meeting at First Presbyterian at October 13th for emergency shelter resources. And that's all I have.
I wanted to mention that today we celebrated and talked about Indigenous Peoples Day, but that the city is also in tandem celebrating Columbus Day, that still is a federal holiday, and that is how the federal government approached things last year, and I assume probably is approaching things this year. So the city of Morgantown is celebrating two things on one day. So that's just something to take note. Also, I appreciate everyone's work on the figuring out how to do our best work with MUB, and I look forward to having everyone's participation with coming up with some new ideas about how we're going to handle the two parts of it that we're going to talk about. So, you will be hearing about scheduling for that soon, I imagine. And I think we can just leave it at that. I really, really appreciate everyone's participation today, all the different groups that we brought in, the hard work of our police chief, the hard work of our Human Rights Commission, all the different people who have graced us with their presence today. So thank you all very much. And somebody want to read us into executive session?
At 10:35, we have an executive session. Okay. I move that
We're going to make it brief because we're
It's gonna
out of
have to
here
be. The
before
county's gonna
11.
Kick us out. I'm
Yeah.
telling you. I move that pursuant to West Virginia State Code Section 6-9A 4B9, we move into executive session to discuss pending or potential litigation.
All right.
Second.
Thank you. And we are just going to get right back there and get to it.